So then I think I'll go ahead and yes, on the call the meeting to order, and the open meeting rules are on the stage there. You have to drop down, and let's say the pledge of allegiance. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll start with roll call, and Patrick will take notes again. James? Here. And Bob?
Yes.
And Larry? And absent is not Isla, but just we have a quorum. So we will open the meeting, and the first thing on the agenda then is to take care of that empty seat. Find the agenda. Don Mink is with us tonight. He served with us before. He has agreed to do so again. The term of office that Isla vacated is until November election of 2022. And so that would be the position and the seat that Don would fulfill until that time. So with that in mind, I would entertain, and no one else showed interest, nobody else contacted me, so I would entertain a motion for Don to fill that place, that seat.
I'll make a motion for getting Don Mink into the city council in the absence of Idaho voter.
So motion by Larry to ask Don to sit in that empty seat.
I'll second.
Seconded by Bob. Roll call vote, we'll start with James.
Yes.
Bob.
Yes.
And Larry.
Yes.
So you may take your seat. And I probably need to, at some point,
You need to recite something.
have you read the oath?
I got one here.
Have you got one?
Yeah,
What was your comment?
Tony has to,
He has it.
he has it? Okay.
Okay.
It's the old one.
Yep, the same.
Okay. I, Donald Mink, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Nebraska against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear the true faith and allegiance to the same, that I will take this obligation freely and without mental reservation or for the purpose of evasion, and that I will faithfully and impartially perform the duties of the office of the city council member according to the law and to the best of my ability. And I further swear that I do not advocate, nor am I a member of any political party or organization that advocates the overthrow of the government of the United States or of this state by force or violence. And that during such time as I am in this position, I will not advocate nor become a member of any political party or organization that advocates the overthrow of the government of the United States or this state by force or violence. So help me God.
Thank you. So, Don joined the ranks. Full voting and membership privileges at this point. Good, welcome, Don. So, yeah, I didn't lay anything out for you. So, the, here's the, okay, so the next thing on the agenda, I need to just briefly say that,
Nicole Molly.
hang on, excuse me. Nicole, I Yeah, I was wanting to know if you were gonna come to the meeting tonight. We have already started, but you're welcome. Okay. Okay, all right, thank you. You bet. Sorry about that, but I left a message for her, so. Just to briefly fill you in, and that's not on the agenda, but it comes at the end there that we're talking about personnel. And Nicole has been in and out, but she thinks she's going to be able to be more steady, if that's the word. So I'm hoping to get her where she is actually in working at like these meetings and so forth. I think that's it, Don, but there might be, seems like there was 3 before it, if not, we're fine. Oh, I know what it is, it's that list of people, workers. So let's start with the first one, which is that need for mowers and or. We know that we have 2 old mowers. Let's just start right off with what we know. We know we have 2 old mowers. We know that they have already nickel and dimed us to death. We have put, a couple hundred or so into the belly mower already. And the other day in conversation, we were talking about the fact that we've kind of had that headset that we've put so much into them now that maybe we need to just run it out. And then there's that, as Patrick and I were talking, I said, but we got all these bids in from across the street and from John Deere and from Jerry. And we know that at least 2 of them will offer us a trade-in value. Is that belly mower worth us running it into the ground and have a piece of pile of iron to get rid of, or should we trade it in while it's got trade-in value? And then we would be running new equipment with warranties and maybe be more effective. We look at the fact that we are going to have lagoon to mow. There's going to be more mowing, not less. Good chance we could use 2 72 inches along the way. We start looking at, well, what if we replace one here, one there, one something else? All options are open. All of that packet had specs and information from those 3 dealerships. My choice, yes, go ahead, Tim.
Did we get bids from the state's website?
From the state's website.
What is this? What is that?
This government pricing.
Yep.
John Deere.
John Deere is able to do government pricing, and we qualify and we're signed up.
Right.
So the John Deere prices are government pricing.
Okay.
They're given by the dealerships, and if we're approved, if they give it, they give it to us.
And on one little note that I remember from the discussion in the past, the way that would work is, if it hasn't changed, is we would buy the mower for the price on the piece of paper, and then the dealership would buy our trade-in from us. When it comes to the government pricing, the government doesn't do a trade-in. So it's just technical. I mean,
It's all on that sheet. From John Deere's the only one of these 3 that offers that.
Okay.
So on those sheets, on those bids from John Deere, they will have the amount of the trade-in value, but also then the final cost of the amount the government sent discount.
yeah, so to make it simple, let's say the John Deere mower was $25,000. We would buy the mower and it would cost us $25,000, and then the John Deere dealership would write us a check for the trade-in price back to us. That's how they described how it would have to work.
But the 20,
They wouldn't take the trade-in value off the price of the mower
But the 25,000 that you mentioned would be after the government pricing.
Yes,
That
that
would
would be, that's
discount
after
would be
the
in there.
government pricing, yes.
So that's on those sheets from.
Yes.
So tell me, we have 2 mowers, do we have 3 mowers, what do we got?
We have two.
A John Deere and International.
We have a John Deere zero turn and an international case belly mower. The belly mower is 72 inch and the John Deere zero turn is 60 inch.
So, on the International, is the mower bed bad, or is the tractor bad?
Well, the
You-
mower.
You said the last meeting we were here that you had to do some work on the mower bed, right?
On the zero
On the
turn.
John Deere,
on the
okay, I'm
John
mistaken,
Deere.
I thought it was on the International.
Well, on the international, Jerry Steffen found that one 3 years ago when I started. And that is currently the one we're using.
But
But the
tractor
tractor
there's-
itself has gone through the shop 3 times. And I've roughly got the number in my head, don't quote me, but we've spent in the last 3 years close to $15,000 on that tractor between the mower and the transmission, and then last summer with the mid PTO bearing going out.
When we replaced those pieces in the International, were they new parts? So now we got a tractor that's got new parts, new transmissions, whatever was happening, right? They should have put new parts and everything that they
They're-
replaced when we took it in there,
Yeah,
right?
they're new parts, yes.
Okay, now, the mower bed, you said that it was coming through, did we ever buy that mower bed from when Jerry found that one for us?
Yeah, that's what.
Yeah,
That's in there and
what I
that's
just
already
said.
shot,
No, I didn't say it's shot.
okay?
You're mixing the John Deere and the belly mower.
I understand
the
it,
John Deere is
I'm just talking about the International right now.
No, the international mower is not bad.
It could go
It's
for a
had- it's
couple,
got
3 years right now.
It's got 3 years use,
Okay,
and the tractor in the last 3 years.
so it's a John Deere that's, the mower is not, the mower and the tractor goes together on that. There ain't no belly mower, that's just the mower, correct? John Deere?
The John Deere is a zero turn.
Still
It's
has a
a
mower.
deck in the,
You can't take the mower off that John Deere, is what I'm asking.
No.
yeah, you can.
That's what I'm asking.
And it's $4,500 a year ago to buy the parts to put a new deck under that mower. As of a year ago. I
Did we-
didn't get current pricing.
Did we,
You
did we,
can't buy a complete mower, you have to buy it in pieces.
did we fix on that John Deere and put new parts in it at all?
We put what's had to go in it to hopefully keep it running this summer, that's
And-
what I've been doing for 3 years. And the issue with that mower right now is the engine misses on cold startups in the mornings, and the deck is wearing to the point where the steel is wearing out. So I'm just making the council aware that, it's,
Well, let me interject something here. If they're gonna offer us right in the 9,000 area for the belly mower, and 4,000 or 5,000 for the John Deere, for the zero turn. If that has that kind of trade-in value, then obviously it has some value. We do so much mowing that the hours on it and the condition it's in, what I'm saying is, we have to consider whether it makes more sense to trade it in while it's got some value, to take off of a new one, and realistically, we probably should be trading every 3 or 4 years. We've put that much work in. It's not even that it's a lot of hours, but it's the terrain, it's a lot of things that get involved. So the choice is, like I said, keep fixing and fixing, and when they're in the condition they're in, whether we can use them or not, they're not gonna run clear of issues all summer, ever, again, no matter who owns them. So we're either going to be fixing and then be forced into buying or whatever, or we can trade them in while they've got value. It's kind of like an old car or something. If you
Well,
trade
yeah,
it in
Guy just said that the international, there's no issues with that one.
No, I don't think he said there's no issues.
Well,
I mean, what do you mean, no issues?
well,
You told me we put that much money in that international,
right.
and we put new parts in there, so that should be good, right? The transmission and everything should be good if we put new parts in.
You tell me, I can't look at something to tell you
Well,
how long
And
it's
it's,
gonna
we've
be.
already put, I just told you, we've already put, it's already had to be taken apart, reset the blades and so forth, and we put a couple $100 of repair and plus whatever time. Because the parts are worn, they, you know, your transmission may be new, but the transmission is not what's cutting it. The deck may be good, but you still got the moving parts in there. So nobody can predict how long it's gonna last, but we can't say I put a brand new transmission in my car and the next year it went out again. So,
To be able to say the case is probably better shape than the John Deere. Or no?
what was
I
that?
would, is the case in better shape than the John Deere? As far as the amount of money we've spent, and I don't know, that's a tough one. That case just keeps nickel and diming.
Sure.
It's been down every summer for 3 summers.
Sure.
So,
Then
I don't know, it's kind of a pit. You know, I don't know. That's why I'm, just saying, hey, what do we wanna try to do here?
So,
We know we need, to cover the ground with the speed and what we need, we need at least, it wouldn't hurt to have 2 72-inchers.
how fast,
But
how
they
fast
get-
are we running these mowers? I've seen guys, whoever's
They're not
mowing,
being-
they're
they're not
running
being-
fast all the way.
They're not being over
Wait,
what.
sure, I'm asking Pat.
I'm trying to answer you with something, and I have a right to speak.
Speak.
The amount of speed is no more than what the dealerships say it will run. It'll cover so many acres in so much time. They're not running these to death, and we need to get that out of our heads.
Well, when
So
that
we're
goes-
not going to even consider that that's a problem.
Can I speak now?
You may.
Talked to a mechanic, not in this town, told him what kind of problems we're having with our mowers. He said it could be a number of things.
Of course I can.
I
Okay. I'm
I
sorry.
didn't interrupt you.
Okay, I'm sorry. Sorry, go ahead.
You go forward and you hit reverse without coming to a stop. He said that is one big major problem. If you go forward and you have to you wanna get around the next corner, you just shove it in the other. That is what a mechanic told me. He was not from this town.
Yeah.
And I don't doubt that, Larry.
Yeah.
Well,
But that,
if we can't take care of our equipment and just slow down a little
So
bit,
you're
now may I answer that? That
Sure.
mechanic's not from this town, he's not seen our people drive, and for you to come back and say he said this could happen, and say that that's what they're doing, is out of line. That's not what they're doing.
I said it possibly could.
Well, let's don't even
Possibly,
consider
I
it.
said. Possibly, sure.
Our drivers know that, and we have to have enough
I'm not your
faith
kid, so
in
don't
what they're
scold me.
doing.
I'm
We
not
have-
your kid, so don't scold me right now.
We have to have enough faith in our people that they're not doing that. So let's move on from that and talk about the condition of the mowers.
And they both got a couple thousand hours on them, right? I think we
The case has more hours than the John Deere. The hours are on each one or in that packet of information. I wanna say the case is somewhere in the mid-2500s and the John Deere is nearing 1900 hours.
And do we know at all what is recommended for that model?
Oh, I don't think there's probably a recommendation. Talking to Dan McFarland, he says, 2,000 hours are up to 150,000 on a car.
2,000 hours is roughly
That's
150,000.
the county.
So like vehicles, different models, you can say they're hardly broke in at 150,
Yeah.
and other models,
Well,
they're done. Right?
Diesels would be more than this and that. but
Yeah.
I don't,
And
Once,
you said what? There's 15 and what?
there's 19 and 25 roughly, but it's not exact, but
So they're at what we're saying is they're getting up towards the end of their life.
yeah.
And that's kind of.
one note to consider that hasn't been said, the zero-turn mowers can mow circles around the belly mower.
Yeah.
But the belly mower we need for along the creeks and the steep slopes. It'd be nice to get rid of the belly mower, but you can't safely run a zero-turn along the creek and up on the steep slopes. So that's something to consider in your decision as well.
And again, to go back to the 72 inch, the 72 inch in the cemetery at this time could be a problem. We've got a lot of shrubbery and stuff out there and difficulty in getting in. If that were all cleaned out, we may be okay. But it's not, and it's not, that's gonna have to be done carefully and so forth if it is. And so probably we still need that 160 inch, was kind of where we came to.
I don't disagree that we probably do need to upgrade. My concern is to upgrade both at the same time, that you're upgrading them both at the
Exactly.
same time.
Yeah.
If you upgraded one this year, waited a year, maybe two, and then upgrade one, then you're at least, you're offsetting.
The years. And we looked at that of trying to do, you know, so that's why we're throwing it out there.
And in that case, that's why I was asking which one's in better shape, which one.
I think that we did, would you agree that we said the John Deere probably has less problems at this point?
It's been having less problems, but it's nearing that point where the case was 3 years ago. So the deck is wearing, so we're looking at possibly a deck.
Is there
The
any
emergency
difference?
brake and the brake system is worn almost to the point where I'm out of adjustment for the emergency brake, or nearing the end of the adjustment. So we're looking at to do some work on that. The engine, you gotta let it warm up a little bit, or it has a little bit of a mist to it on a cold start, especially on a cold day, and even on a warmer day. So it's, in the last 2 years, I wouldn't say it's condemning the mower, but it's more pronounced this year than it was last.
Well, we also talked about that it wouldn't hurt to have two 72s and a 60, that at some point wouldn't hurt to have 3 mowers, just for the whatever. And if you used the 60 inch around the cemetery and around all those tight places, whether you don't have to have 3 drivers necessarily, but fitting the mower to the job, that you would cut down on the hours of all of them and maybe add longevity, would kind of kick that around a little bit too.
I
So,
don't remember the exact price, but what was the 72 inch mower out here at the Steffen's service? What was that price for that 72 inch mower about? Was it in that $9,000 range? Is that what it was?
no, about 11.
I don't remember the prices there, but it's up here.
And the problem with those are and we haven't talked about those, kind of talked about the other two, but that one, those are lighter weight steel, but and I think the reason I'm thinking the difference in that price off is that I was looking at the one that had the seat, because if you're gonna be on the mower all day, that many days, I can remember Boomer walking in here with his back there telling me, there's a few of these, we need to have those where they can not get killed on them.
Yeah, I just remember there was 1,000 or 1,200, 1,500 maybe difference in the 2 mowers, and it was the season.
And I think that's where, I think I marked that 11,000 in your packet.
Well, this was just the one that, just comparing to the jury, that Steffen's had also. Just, he has 2 that are similar size 72 inch deck. One has a real seat, and the other one's just like, sitting on a bench, a rock, or deal there. full.
You want that,
Here's this, yes,
what do they call that? Possibility. And the other thing is that I thought with gas, the guys kind of prefer diesel in the sense that they run further. And it seems that the fuel goes further, so even though it costs more, it might be more cost efficient. But I saw that the
With
one
the-
thing Jerry did.
With the real seater, the standard seater was at the deluxe kind of spreader seat. I know there was $1,000 or something difference between having a real seat and
On Jerry's
Yeah.
mower? That's a good question, I don't.
That's what I
I asked Jerry for more detailed information, and this sheet is all I got, so I'm not sure. Yeah, this doesn't give me enough information to even look
Okay,
it up.
in our packet, there were, like you said, there were two different prices, one for,
I thought one of them, I thought one of them said with the seat. It's in that very first sheet.
yeah,
Right.
Is it one of those extra packets there?
This is the sheet, and there's nothing about seat on it.
No, it doesn't say a deluxe model over a standard model, it doesn't have.
One thing to note about Jerry's
Right
is
here.
yeah, there's,
Suspension seat.
okay.
yeah, I know.
One thing I noticed about Jerry's, and I don't know what you guys feel about that, Jerry's is belt driven from the engine to the deck. And I know the John Deere is shaft driven. Everybody has their preference as to what.
And I talked to a repair shop and said, if you are looking at mowers, which do you get the most of, the shaft driven or the belt? And he said, oh, without a doubt, if you're doing a lot of mowing,
It's almost
the shaft driven is better. Your mower, or your belt driven, you have a lot more belt driven. Brakes or whatever. So, and then there was something in that spec that said something about the thickness of the steel on the deck, and so that's on me, cause I just kinda discounted Jerry's because of that. The steel, and the, belt drive.
Oh, the warranty similar, right?
None of them talked about warranty, well, Jerry did, whatever was in the package. Would be the warranties on the other. John Deere has a decent warranty, you know, and these over here, we're going to know, stand by whatever. It seems to me, I thought 2 to 3 years. If we kept them 3 years and started replacing.
They're all the same.
There's also that possibility that you start with 1 or 2 or whatever, and then add that third one to cut, like I said, to get like
From
your
what
small
I
places.
saw, I
There
would
may
say
be
no,
places in
but
and
I
around
can't-
areas of the park or ballparks where the 60-inch would work better, that you could use that in a whole day or whatever, and then you can get those 72 inches out there, carry those to the lagoon and get it done in a quick time.
Obviously, have a 72 inch CTR takes the pressure off the 60 inch CTR that won't be used as much.
Say that again.
I mean, if you have the 72 inch CTR, then you take the workload off of the 60 inch CTR, and that works hard because you do more.
Absolutely, that's what I mean, you do
So
that.
it's
But,
improving the price of it.
everything you do with that smaller one helps.
Great.
It cuts the hours on all of them. And I agree that they should be replaced every so often to look at that. You know, you don't just run them in the ground to get into this position.
I would like to talk to you and then have them guys tell us, you know, this don't tell me nothing, just by looking at this is a lighter weight machine compared to these, so I think all the metal's the same, but I'm not.
Everything that I saw for the metal was 7 and 8 gauge.
It's all standard on all three of them, right?
Not on Jerry's, is it?
I don't remember now, and I
I don't
can't-
remember.
I've seen so many numbers, I can't remember.
Well, this is where we need to talk to, we need to ask him to gauge the metal there, and gauge the metal here, because this is what we're not more than anything, I see.
What I remember is their decks were comparable, they were both 8 gauge. That's what I remember.
Okay.
But
Well, then
you can't hold me to it.
No, I
because
understand, but all these
it's-
motors are all about the same thing, you got, that's pretty standard, this is where we're gonna have problems, if we're gonna have anything.
No, what I've seen with our mowers is that the deck is gonna show the wear before anything
And that's
else.
this right here. this
They
little
wear
piece.
out.
Well, and I'll take it back, I don't know about how the depth.
I would like to know what
but
kind of gauge of metal.
One of them was an alloy and one of them was pure steel, that's what I'm thinking too, I don't know. John Deere's known for steel, supposedly.
That's,
But
if you look at that information in your packet, I thought that all that information was there.
that's what I was reading, that's all I read in the packet, so I never, other than talking to, repair. Okay, so, as we walk through there, there's one more aspect here. We were told, by that's the grasshopper across the street, right? That those, what they have on hand, they're not sure that they will be able to get. They've got the 61 inch on hand now. They don't know when orders will come in. The same is true with John Deere. What we are looking at, what my recommendation is, are the models that they have on hand. Anything ordered, we don't know when we're gonna get it. That's the other danger of waiting for something to break down, is the availability.
Most lead times that I've heard are 8 months or more.
And I think Jerry said that his would be hard, if he's got one or two on hand of some, and
Jerry said something about, they're waiting on the engines and they don't know. They just plain don't know. They can't even give you an approximation. So if he doesn't have it, he doesn't have it. We'd have to wait.
and I think that's part of what.
So
You're
that's
saying, Jerry don't have one of these 72s on hand?
He did have a 72 and he did have a 60 when I talked to him, but that was just about a month ago.
And Caden's got a 60 on hand, but no 72?
As far as I.
61,
Yeah,
And
61.
John Deere, where's that out? Bloomfield?
Bloomfield, and they had both of those 0 turns on hand at that time.
So my question is, and you just seen it when I showed you, the gauge of that metal on those beds, on the mower beds, they all gotta be this 8 gauge, or we're just going slow. Because it's supposed to be the heavier bellies, the mower beds.
Right.
Otherwise, we're not gonna gain nothing by it, correct? It should be the heavier metal in that mower part. The engine and the wheels, yeah, they're all the same, everybody's got the same kind of stuff. But the belly part where the mower is, that's what you said that we wear more than anything, right?
That's where the most and fastest wear comes in, yes.
So you told me that the John Deere has a shaft and a pin. So if we break that, we got to tear down, but a belt on Jerry's, we just have to replace the belt and get back to work, correct?
Yes, but
And
a
what
belt
about-
usually doesn't handle, if we fall behind mowing, a belt won't, you'll be mowing slower.
We buy 2 or 3 belts just so we have them on hand if they rip.
We keep
Now,
on-
Caden's now, is that a belt driven or a shaft driven?
I wasn't able to check that out.
So we don't know anything
I'm
of
not
those 3
sure.
yet.
I'm not sure whether it's belt or shaft. I wanted to look, but I haven't had time to do that.
Well, we're not talking apples to apples with those 3 then, because for one thing, you know, they all should have a belt driven, or they all should have a pin and roller, a shaft driven, and they
I
all should
get
have the
that
same
part.
kind of metal.
But Jerry
underneath.
doesn't have any that shaft driven, I believe,
He doesn't have any that are shaft driven that I know of.
and I think John Deere probably doesn't have any that's belt driven, so.
Right.
That's part of the difference.
I know what you're asking, and that's what I said up at the table. I know you want apples to apples, but you're welcome to try to find that.
Well,
I've been looking at mowers
The
for
mower
3
beds,
years.
the mower beds should have either a commercial grade bed that they mow. That should have a commercial and a residential. That's how you buy mowers, to see what they bid. If they're commercial ones, you use them for places like this or big factories or whatever. The
Right.
residential is like somebody I would buy for my own personal use because I don't mow that much, correct? I mean, I only mow my yard compared to what you guys are gonna be mowing here, correct?
Yeah,
So we're looking for a commercial grade mower with a commercial deck on it.
Right,
And if
that's
they got
7.
thinner metal on there, then we're not getting what we wanted.
Well, in everything that I looked up, what we have there is 8-gauge steel. So as far as the thickness of steel, unless you can show me otherwise, they're all 8-gauge. I saw nothing less than 8-gauge on all 3 of them.
But John Deere don't make a belt-driven thing, they just make a shaft on that mower? John
The
Deere?
John Deere is considered a commercial mower, and it's shaft driven.
And
Jerry's is not shaft driven, that's
what about Hess's?
I wasn't able to look.
We thought
I'm
it
not
was.
sure what theirs is. I didn't have a chance to get over there the last few days to look.
Is our current John Deere shaft driven?
Yes,
Have you guys have any issues with
nothing.
that? Nothing.
What did it say?
I hate to tell you what I've hit with it because I don't wanna
No,
admit it.
I just was curious if the current John Deere was shaft driven, and
Yes.
was curious if you had any
Yes.
issues.
The shaft.
Both our mowers right now are shaft driven. And it'll pull the motors down. I had to pull it down one day when I sunk in the mud.
Sure.
And it killed the engine before
It did
and
any
it did any damage to anything.
Yes. Bob, concerns?
Well, I don't, it's hard because it's really hard to compare apples with apples, but it would be nice to have, I mean, I haven't had yet, but if we had a sheet that could say the John Deere one was 72 inches, shaft drive, X number of dollars, Jerry's 72, at 72 and so many dollars, and then Caden's is a grasshopper, is that what it is?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And it's not 72.
Is that a zero turn too, that grasshopper?
They can get as grasshopper, that is
They
a
don't have
zero
one on
turn,
here.
not one with the,
You said you want a zero turn, and that's,
right.
and Cadence don't have one at this point, right?
It's my understanding that they priced what they have, that we could get one. But that was weeks ago. They could be sold by now. And that's the same for all of them. I mean, the John Deere might be sold too, but they did have, over in Bloomfield, they did have 2 models over there.
What Bloomfield is part of Acre, Bloomfield part of CNB, what's their major corporation, CNB?
Grossenberg Implement.
Grossenberg.
They're under the cover of Grossenberg.
So they have John Deere's all over the world then?
They're big.
They're big, yeah.
Yeah.
I know it's Grossenberg and Hardington as well.
And Winter, South Dakota was one of the largest ones in the world, so. When I went to get my John Deere, I had to go to a different dealership, and I bought it through Plainview, but I had to go to Acres and pick it up in Omaha, but, so they can find you a mower.
Yes.
There's no doubt that they'll eventually will be able to find some more.
Just on that grasshopper.
This is the grasshopper.
Do you have enough information to make an informed decision at this point?
I do.
Oh, yeah. Okay, yep.
It is.
So we really do need a belly mower.
Well, I think we need both mowers. I just don't think we should buy both at the same time. That's my opinion.
Keep the one that we got, that international.
Yeah, we can get by a
And
year or
just-
2 for it, and
What-
then 2 years.
The grass, it says it right here, the grasshopper is belt driven.
You know,
The blades are,
Belt driven,
is belt driven, yes.
I think it replaced them every.
but it don't have a zero turn though, right?
They do have a zero turn.
They,
I'm
I don't
thinking,
know if we have to find out if they have one or can get one, right?
Well, they priced the one that they have.
if we could take the
Right.
pressure off it, maybe we get one.
And this is,
Maybe we need to be looking
Can they
into
get
zero
one
turn.
as a zero turn?
That's what,
If they
that's
can
what
find
we
it at
think,
another
zero turns
implement
would be
place.
Oh,
2 zero.
That's what I'm asking. That's what I'm asking. If we first gotta find out if they can find
He
one.
was saying to get
And
both.
well,
And it'll be different because this is a 60 inch and they get, we want
It's-
72 inch.
And if they just use that case for that,
that's tough. If we take the bushes out of the seven, down
Use
to
that
cemetery,
like
I
that.
don't think we'd have any problem with 72.
Yeah.
True. And I know, that's the,
You're taking
a
a
72 out at,
If you bought 2 zero turns and keep,
cemeteries,
That
could
would take a
cause
lot
us
of
to do
pressure
a
off
lot
that. It
more
might last
back, and
quite a few more
especially if we got rid of the 60 that we
That's
have.
used.
Now, if we
And-
had
and it's
kept
because
the
of this.
60 that we have,
Yeah.
and buy a
For
72.
safety reasons, use that.
Hopefully that one would stay
Not use it.
together and we could use that at the cemetery and use the
You're talking
72.
about-
I think when I was on last, we put a lot of money into
60 is the.
I walked
zero
into
turn
Charlie's
that
over here.
we- that we
But you
have.
said it's so.
I don't know how the hell
They're
That's
they.
so much
there.
repairs, but he's got so much repairs, so
Right.
can we use that building
Right.
at the cemetery?
It's
Yeah.
72 inches and it turns.
Because it has, a use.
I seen where.
We had
he-
trouble
Yeah,
with
the other ones
We
can't.
had
do it.
trouble
Zero
getting
turn
parts
lane.
for it last
I don't need
year.
a zero turn lane roadways that we got.
We
That's-
don't have to, no, but the zero turn can
That's fine.
outmow that belly mower, hands down. I can outmow that 72-inch belly mower with a
There's the other,
60-inch
the more,
zero turn
the more
down
repair
here,
you
hands
have,
down.
the more you have to worry about parts fixing.
Jerry's are,
And that's-
Right now,
mostly
that's
gas, it can get a
all
diesel.
over.
But why do we
Not
want to
just-
But I don't know
price
what
it?
they
Don't want to
say.
price it.
Cars, trucks, lumber yards,
As far as I know, yes.
They're all gas, right?
They're all, Jerry's are all
Those are
gas,
the
this
thing.
is a diesel.
We're looking at the
Bob.
price of diesel's going there, Pat. Let's get,
Hey, this isn't my decision, I'm just trying to give you
I
guys
understand
the.
it, but the gas one would be simpler. But does Jerry have a 60 on him?
He did, but that's been weeks ago. All these
But
mowers
he-
that
but
have
he
been
got other-
priced, they've had on hand, but that was at least 3
But
weeks
he
ago.
deals with this outfit, that outfit, it's like Hesse's, they got them all over the place. Jerry's in with a corporation with different places on the same kind of mower, is what I'm saying. We should ask him if he could get a 60, if he could find one for us, that he don't have to special order it. You know, that would be the smart thing to do. Our
He did have a 60 and he did have a 72.
we got the 60 on the mower, 72. Right, I mean, we use our 72.
Is the belly mower we have now the 60 or 72?
72.
I can't see his mine.
Right there.
Hey, Bob. Don brought up a good point. Why don't we look at my 2-0 turns and then just keep the hefty mower?
This is from
It's a little
Caton's,
bit- No, this, oh,
this is from Caton's.
oh, yes, yep, I'm sorry. Yes, that's from Katie's.
2 ZTRs.
Yeah, get 2 of those, and if we're just mowing the hillsides and the creek with that mower, that sucker could last a lot longer than, we're just putting a couple hours on it a week. That thing should last a long time.
In the same way with the 60-inch ZTRs, the John Deere we have, if we're only gonna mow the cemetery type places with it, then we'll have the use either.
Exactly.
Or not a lot of.
I mean, you know as well as I do, those 0 turns, you can mow a ton more than you can with a standard mower. They're just so much faster, so much easier to get around.
But the John Deere is the only shaft driven,
Right.
and the John Deere in comparison with Jerry's, that we're comparing the gas to the diesel also. And
What's the
this-
price between the John Deere? It's like, well, we're gonna have to pay full price, they'll only give us traded value on one, obviously, if we go to. What's the difference between the John Deere, just straight price, and Jerry straight price on a 60-inch, is it there? Do you have that?
Not sure what that,
Then you're good.
John Deere.
I think it is,
I didn't see it in it.
or maybe it's not.
Seen them, all they have is that crap.
This is all John Deere. Well, it's Katie.
There's a John Deere, which is, what are you looking for, 72 inch?
No, the 60-inch John Deere.
60 inch?
It was,
I thought you wanted 272 zero turn.
no, they don't make, no, we're talking about 60-inch 0
These
turns.
are used.
The 72 is a belly mower. I don't even know if they make a 72 0 turn.
Yeah,
There we go.
well, they have 2 zero.
And if it's, as you chose, I don't know that. I don't know what you chose, this is case.
Nothing better to do that.
There's the ZTR there. This is 0 turn. But how big is it?
Do they have a 72 0 turn?
A diesel.
What's that?
What?
$40,000? Oh,
That's a tractor again.
72.
tractor. There's a CPR. But it doesn't say if it's 72-inch deck, but that's the thing. Patrick, all these, John Deere's are all 72-inch deck?
Yes,
Okay.
I thought we had.
Both John Deere, the zero turn, these are 72.
They're 72 inches.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
so we have a 60 now and they're all 72 inches.
Yes.
See, there's the 16.5. That's,
But if we bought
That's a
two,
trade-in.
one of these, we gotta buy.
We still need a 60-inch deck to mow it. We have to have a smaller deck mower.
Just a cemetery.
Right?
and then there's another, here's one, I don't know what the
I don't know where else.
This is 16, this is 12.
I don't know where else you use
But
it.
they're both 72.
We could,
Yeah,
a
might have been the
zero
seed.
turn, we could
What was the
do a
difference?
lot of mowing in a cemetery without the bushes out, but we couldn't do it all. There's a few places where it's just too tight. But with the bushes out, we could, I'm pretty sure we could get through with a 72.
Here's a 72-inch for Jerry's.
Right.
What's the difference
You know,
in these two? Why is one of them that much
got it
better?
with this special seat, suspension seat. The heat is
Right here, these got it highlighted.
What is 16-inch more? What do you have 16-inch more? I don't think it. You see that 72 inch?
This has got the fancier tires on it.
And the suspension, well, they both got suspension.
Yes.
The higher price of
It's got the no flat tires on it.
Oh, the new ones that
Yeah,
are
the
all
new
orange.
ones. That's what I see here.
That's the difference between, how much is that?
So, I think one's a gas and one might be a diesel. Yes, the cheaper one is a gas and the spendier one is a diesel of these two,
That's the John Deere one?
of the John Deere.
John Deere.
DCR 72s?
Yeah, they're, the 997 mower, the less expensive one is the gas.
You know, the governor.
And you have gas.
That's the
We have
12,000
diesel
left.
now.
You have a diesel.
We have a diesel now.
This one is gas.
And it uses, I'm surprised at how little fuel.
So you get the retail, as you get the.
In the long run, the diesel's a better deal.
In my opinion, yes.
That's because they knew you did.
$4,000.
Right. Is it worth that? Control area
The $4,000 difference between gas and the diesel
and the diesel.
for the same mower, only thing different is the diesel, right?
Yes, that's my understanding.
So seats are same on.
Seats are the good seats on the John Deere.
So the John Deere one is 12,500, is that what you're looking at?
Yeah. And the gas is 8,500.
If we're thinking about one, maybe we should get 172.
Well, and if we're thinking about buying two, we have the problem of they only have one of each of these mowers there. We would have to order one, and they don't know what the price is because they're too close to the New Year's pricing, and they wouldn't let them do a government pricing. So it's subject to availability if we wanted to. They would have to find the second one.
You understand what I'm saying? If we had 2 0, we kept it international. All they'd use it for would along the creek, inside it, that's it.
And the
So
crick and
get a
the,
60 and a 72.
Get 270.
I think we did 272s.
We'll still need a 60 till we get the cemetery straightened out, all right?
Did you get by and weeding around?
I think,
Yeah.
I think we could probably get by for now
With 270.
with 272s. I mean, years back when I went from a 24-inch snapper to a 12-inch bigger John Deere tractor, I cut my 2.5 acres in half. It was mowing time, so.
I think we could
You
cut
know,
down.
what we would lose right now by not taking the bushes out, we would probably gain in just not having to spend as much time mowing. I don't know that for a fact, but
And that's something the board, and we've got a cemetery board now too, but that's something we've got to consider is getting a lot of those bushes out because they're interfering with the
Well,
It's
the
done
pallbearers
some
can't
graves
get
and
through there right now and it's scratching the hearse and the people that are coming to the cemetery would be ecstatic if they saw them gone. It's just, it's
Then
done.
that won't be an issue.
Larry, what's your concern? Do you have concern? I like the idea of the 272. I would think we could cut our 010 down to nothing.
And trade the one in.
Trade the one in, order the one, see if we can order the second one, see what kind of price we can get on the second one.
That's at 12,500 each, right?
No, the one would be 12.5 because we get a $4,000 trade-in. The other one would be 16.5 if we can get it at that.
That doesn't include that last page.
And if they last us, like the other one's 12 years old, if this thing lasts us 12 years,
It shows that it's
8,500,
with the
where do you
trade.
come up with 12,000?
One's diesel, one's gas. One's diesel.
8,500 is gas and 12,000 is diesel.
Right, but the gas one would be 8,500 when we traded in,
The 4,000 on that trade.
Right,
Yes,
the diesel.
if we bought a gas.
if we
yes.
bought.
If we bought it,
If
we
we
can
bought
buy
it.
whatever you want. He was saying that the diesel takes quite a bit less fuel than the
Yeah.
gas. Even though
Right.
diesel right now is $1.40. It's not gonna stay like that forever, it fluctuates.
It's really hard to compare apples to apples.
Well, that's why they build them different, to
No,
make it
72.
different, so
Oh,
you
yeah,
have to
272.
get figured again. If they were all exactly like it, would be competition. And that's got those good suspension seats.
It's just gonna be more weedy,
Yep,
which they're gonna make way
Boomer
more
could
time
never run
on.
the zero turn that we have because it was so hard on his back. And it's rattled my teeth a number of times.
so make sure that that's in that price.
So that would
We've
be,
got those good
that
seats.
nice seat would be awesome.
Then while we're at that, you know, because we wanna get our equipment to the place where, you know, it's up to date, it's not gonna cost us, and it's comfortable to run, et cetera. So in the process of thinking about that, if we get 2 zero turns or 2 of anything, whatever they are, we're gonna have to get out to the lagoon area.
Well, I'm gonna disagree with that, because I remember him saying that if we build a lagoon, we don't have to put any service into it whatsoever. We don't have to mow it, we don't have to do anything unless we want to.
I know you've said that before, but that is absolutely not.
Not
That's
right.
what I remember him telling me, I remember
who's-
asking
who's-
the guys from Miller, when he came in and gave us a presentation, I asked him, is there any, he said none unless you want to. Absolutely no maintenance to that unless you
Okay,
want to.
well, I have a book that I went to the DEE website when we were early on to learn about lagoons and rough regulations. It says right in those regulations that you cannot pay them, just like what Boomer said that
Yep,
meeting.
I remember him saying
You
that.
have to mow it to keep it down, to keep rodents from tunneling, because that tunneling will potentially ruin your lagoon.
Right.
And it'll cost you thousands and thousands of dollars.
We'll have to address that with Miller's. We'll have to-
Is it possible that he may have thought you meant,
I just asked him if there
Body
was
of the
maintenance, but he
lagoon.
said no.
like, you know, maintenance of the inside of the
I remember him
lagoon?
saying, you don't have to do anything, you don't have to mow, you don't have to do
He
anything.
said it was maintenance free, didn't he?
Yeah, maintenance free. You don't have to mow, you don't have to do
I don't know what
anything.
maintenance free is to him, but
Well,
In his presentation, I.
That's why I'm wondering if he's thinking of the actual body of the lagoon as opposed to the surrounding area, because you're not gonna mow inside the lagoon.
No, but I remember there was a pricing on his proposal, and he said this is maintenance if you want to do it. You don't have to do anything to it. You don't have to mow it, you don't have to do anything. But we'll address that.
I don't remember. Yeah.
Because the 72,
Yeah.
they're
I've
gonna go so
known
much
from the
faster,
beginning
you know,
because I
the
looked at
little bit
it,
of
it's
time
right
it
in
is
the
gonna
state
take, we
regulations.
need more, it's gonna be way
I
more
can
than
show it to you.
Well, I'm gonna have to,
Yep, that's
we'll
exactly
get
what
this,
he said.
he's gotta come
That's what he
back.
said.
he can stick to it.
Okay, so,
You're gonna have less man hours in this thing, just for clarification.
You're gonna weed eat faster by having 2 zero turns, right?
Yes.
Well, I mean, if we we'd eat less,
Go to the cemetery,
right?
we're going to the cemetery, if you have 272s, ETRs, whatever,
Right.
the time that you're gonna lose because of the mobility of it will be made up for sure. The weed eating won't take that much more time. It'll be a lot faster. Your total time out there will be less with 272s and the extra weed eating than it will be.
That would be my guess, yes. My
And the weeding will eventually go away
Right.
if they ever remove the bush.
Right.
Well, we're not over that hurdle yet.
No, I'm just saying, I don't think about today, I'm thinking about
I understand.
2 years down the road. It will,
But that's
It will
that's
in
another
time.
area we gotta take care of.
But 272-inch ZTRs gas, that's my personal impression with gas. 72-inch ZTRs for $21,000 if we get rid of our 60-inch. If we can get them, that's a.
We're still gonna keep the international then?
It has purpose.
For our junk stuff?
Yeah.
Well, if that were the case, then yeah, we'd keep the belly mower to mow the creek
yes.
and
The
to do
junk
the
area
Crofton sign.
around town.
To do the Crofton sign in the Reservoir Hill.
And then we'll look into that next year. We'll do some,
But is the bed on that international, is that in good shape? I thought.
Oh, yeah, it's only 3 years old, and the old one that was terrible, I had it rebuilt before Jerry bought the new one, so if worse came to worse and the thing just blew up tomorrow, we could put the old one back.
But we do have the new one that Jerry bought, or we got from Jerry, right?
The new one from Jerry
New
went
one's on
under
the tractor.
it went under there as soon as we got it.
Okay.
but with the two John Deere 72-inch ZTRs, we get shaft drive, no maintenance, no belts to adjust to replace.
Well, there's belts on the deck,
Right.
from the engine
Right.
to the deck.
And we never had issue with that. That
We've
drive is
never had
flawless.
any issues on the John Deere.
And I can't promise anything, but those John Deere gas engines will outlast those decks.
Well, my question is, okay, we got that belly dump, you can take that mower off. We aren't gonna use that tiller anymore behind that, that's what hurt us the first time, that tractor. When we use that little tiller that you got back up there, correct?
Well,
We're not gonna hook
the
that-
tiller was on it when the bearing went out,
I-
but in the weeks before that something was going wrong, and it would nudge once in a while, and we talked to Caitlin's, and they said, we need more information. We can't troubleshoot it this way, continue to use it. It just so happened that we were trying to till those gardens up there when it went out. Caitlin's came in, got it, worked on it, thought it was the brakes, fixed the brakes, sent it back out again, and that's when it went out for good. And that's when it took the transmission case and the bearings and that big first expense. 2 years ago.
Do we have a Grasshopper 72-inch that we compare to straight out gasoline? Is there one like that?
There is one, but I don't know if we have a price for that. from
And my logic
Caitlin's.
here is that if it's close, I'd buy here out there instead of over there, you know.
But you won't get the government pricing.
Right, but we
Right.
won't get government pricing and we won't get a shaft drive, and which is to drive the deck, which is huge.
But don't Jerry can do shaft drive ones, so there's
His mowers,
what about that grass, or was that a shaft drive?
That paperwork that says
Oh, no,
over
that,
there.
maybe they can find one.
What are you looking for?
Oh, they were talking about from Caitlin's, whether we can get a 72.
That's all over there, this is all.
I didn't see it over here.
Jim and Don, don't you think we should at least ask him and him
They've got it.
in their line
Yeah.
mowers?
It's in here.
Yes.
72 gas from.
The one that was over there is the same one.
Ask those guys if they could get us a shaft drive.
This is where our source that.
All, the John Deere International and that Grasshopper all got shafts and we can make our decisions.
I don't know.
We all gotta have it, cause you're talking belts here and shafts over here, it's two
It's
different
here.
things.
It's not
You
here.
still gotta,
It's right here.
still gotta give these guys a chance.
Grasshopper does have a 72 gas right here.
Yeah, they do have a 72 gas. If you
That's
can
it,
get
If you
one.
can get it.
What's the
Yeah.
price?
It doesn't have a price.
But
The
they should
diesel
get-
one's 15.
But they should be able to look at these other implements
So
that
they're
are
gonna be
got.
close to that.
Like I said, They should be able to drive, call on the phone.
12, 11.
If it comes along, you know,
I've been told that mowers are in limited supply, so if you want something specific, you're probably gonna have to order it. These dealerships aren't trading between them like they were. And I've heard that from Keaton's and John Deere. But I'm just repeating what I've heard.
did Jerry ever say that he can't get a shaft drive one?
I never asked him if
We
you
maybe
could get a
should ask
shaft
somebody,
drive.
because we can't just say you guys are not
That's
included
why
over
we've
there.
tried to get this information out, and if you guys have questions, we can do this before tonight.
This is the first
I don't
time,
know.
this is the first time I've seen
Well, we don't need it.
This, all the packet,
Cheryl
that whole
sent
packet
that
came
along.
to you at the last meeting.
Yeah,
Not,
but
not this, not
Well-
pricing, not this.
Yes, that meeting,
you didn't,
Right here it is. The whole thing is all stapled together.
and I had.
But we didn't know whose was what. That was the
well, it's
problem.
all on
It's
there
all
except for
marked on
Jerry Steffens, and the reason Jerry Steffens isn't is because I asked for it and he didn't give it to me. But
That
till
afternoon.
4:30 the day of the meeting, and I forgot to write the name on before I photocopied it. But everything else has who it's from on each set of pages.
I apologize, I didn't think about that. And we got last meeting, I looked at it.
But we're looking, yeah, when we're looking at the Grasshopper, we're looking at that 300 series versus the 700 series, which I don't know, I'm not a Grasshopper expert, but
Right.
the 700 series does have a 3-year commercial warranty. It is obviously more expensive.
How much is that, Bob?
The diesel one is 18,000, 17,000.
The gas one is 15.
Right.
And-
That's a decent one too, the gas would be
Oh,
over.
the gas would be over here. Don't have it. But Jeremy Bushcamp's got his gas. I know he does.
I think Dustin said he's got a grasshopper, didn't he?
He's got a little tractor with a belly mower that he bought over here.
Jeremy Bushcamp's got a big grasshopper that he uses out of his place. I've seen that.
I know nothing about grasshoppers,
Well,
so.
he likes it that you can lift the blade, lift the front end up,
We
hydraulics.
can't use one of them.
That's-
That's the
Ground
one
zero, you
with
can't use that?
the mower out on the front, that even a 60-inch, we can't even get through this. Larry and Leon had the front mower, the mower out in front,
That's what he's got.
60-inch, and they couldn't get it around out there because it's so much longer. By the time you turn, you're hitting this one on the corner and you're hitting that one.
Oh,
over
at the
there.
cemetery, you're talking
Right,
about.
we,
I'm
on the
talking about
grasshoppers.
repairs of blades and stuff, you know, up the front like
Yeah.
this.
That's what I'm
Those are
saying.
the ones that extended out. So the one we priced was the one that's more compact.
See,
Right here,
Lower
yeah.
you gotta be,
And there's a grasshopper.
yeah, that's a grasshopper, zero turn with the deck between the wheels. You're talking about lifting the deck is the deck in front of the wheels. And the one in front of the wheels is too long to get between the tombstones. So if we buy one of those, we could use it wherever else, but not at the cemetery.
Yeah, we
Well, if you've still got your belly, you could mow it.
The
So that-
belly mower is 72-inch and it's a tractor and it's longer yet.
Yeah, can't get that out there either.
Well, Larry, what you wanna do is see if Jerry can get a shaft driven 72-inch gas.
What's that?
You wanna see if Jerry can get a 72-inch gas?
I would like to have him at least see if he can get one. If he can't get one, that's fine. But at least give him a shot and see if he can get a spindle mower what we want.
And,
Okay.
and the same way across the
Okay,
street.
stay there. At least to give him a shot what we want.
And
Not
we give-
saying
we give
we
him-
just do it without him.
Then we get to the end of the week to get us that. I'm not having another special meeting for this.
Oh, no, we can do it next month meeting.
We can do it.
We
at-
can last that long.
We can do it in an email.
I've got a question just to go with that, Larry. Is this something that we wanna try to do this summer? Because if we don't take what they have in inventory, we're looking at an 8-month lead time.
Can we get
More
this?
than likely, and it doesn't matter from who.
If they can get one, if they have on hand in other places. okay?
That's, I
If
was,
they have
I
to order it,
was,
that's different.
I've been told that that's highly unlikely that we could be able to do
Over here,
that.
though.
I've been told everywhere that it's highly unlikely, if you don't buy what we have on hand, you'll have to wait. It's not, I'm just repeating what I've been told. You keep asking that question, and my answer is the same.
What is on hand?
Gotta get it.
What is on hand?
What is on hand?
The 2 John Deeres, as of 3 weeks ago.
They had one of those over
They
there.
had one over here, the 61-inch,
And that's not a 72.
and that's not a 72, that's a 61.
So only
And
72.
Jerry had a 72 and a 60, but I don't see him sitting in his lineup, and I saw a brand new one sitting in front of Joe Weeble houses the other day,
And they're not shaft driven.
and they're not shaft driven.
And that's kind of where we came up with what's on hand
Right.
that we can get without having to wait.
I mean, if you wanna do that, we can, but we're looking at waiting 8 months to whoever knows.
Well, we
And
can-
prices could change, you know.
We can go ask, I mean, we can ask.
Oh, yeah.
By, and that mean, if 2 weeks makes a difference, then I guess, it makes a difference, we could, if, you know, just ask Hayden and by the next meeting, let us know if you can find them, if they're available or not, if Jerry, if they're finding it is available or not, if not, or John Deere has them and they're available.
Can we approve them?
At least you got
Approve it.
With the stipulation that if they've got them,
Call
we'll
them and they can,
we'll have
if we
them.
can get it by the end of the week. I mean, I don't wanna wait another 2 weeks on
No.
this.
So we want a 72-inch shaft driven,
Gas.
0 turn
Gas.
gas,
Under 12.5, so we can buy them locally,
under 12.5,
so we can buy them locally,
Yep.
under 12,500,
Yep.
and a pair of them.
and a pay, okay, 2.
And these are,
Shaft drive, 0 turn gas, under 12.5, from both Caton's and Jerry Stephan.
and then we are gonna be left with the John Deere then, the 60, because neither one of those is gonna take that $4,000 trade-in either.
But that's gotta be on the table though. That's gotta be on the table. They have to take the trade.
Right?
That's right.
That's gotta be on the
It
table.
has
Ask,
You can't
otherwise
take
it's
it
not
off the
fair,
table.
there's no way
No.
we're gonna lose $4,000.
No, they gotta take the trade.
And they both said, Caton's offered something.
Caton's offered, yeah, it's on that sheet.
Okay, yep, yep.
I
Where's
think
that sheet?
Caton and John Deere came in
That's fine.
about the same.
Yep.
Yep.
Just-
So Jerry was the only one that didn't give us any trade-in price. I asked for one, but what you see is what I got 2
Okay.
hours before that meeting.
Okay.
That's fine. If we gotta leave that on the table. That's
Right.
All right.
It must take trade-in.
Yes, please.
In order for this, for us to be able to do that, I think we have to have a motion.
I'll make a motion to buy 2 mowers, 2 gas mowers, 72-inch,
Okay.
grass shaft driven, gas.
Purchase,
Getting a path.
starting to.
I'll
Motion to
second.
purchase 2 0-turn. Did you say gas?
Gas. Shaft
Motion to
driven.
purchase shaft driven.
And take those old 0 turn in for trade. Right?
And they gotta be under 12.5. That's what John Deere's at right now, 12.5.
And then.
And it has to be here before the next meeting, is that right? I mean, next week or so, if I can get it, 2 weeks?
Wherever you get us, you know, obviously, we're not gonna buy it if they can't get to us next summer. And there's 2 John Deere's, they're sitting out here waiting for us to buy
I
them.
understand that.
And they won't be good in 2 weeks, probably.
So, they got, they,
John Deere told me that they have these 2 John Deere 0 turns on hand, and anything other than, so right now,
They
I'm
may
just
not be.
cautioning you, I don't think John
Okay.
Deere could deliver 2 0-turn mowers either,
okay,
at that price.
check on that.
And I think,
But-
that- remember that this came out last month's meeting, so they may be gone now.
They might be.
Yeah, they might be gone already.
We may be spinning our wheels.
Motion to purchase 2 0-turn gas shaft driven under 12.5 with trade-in.
They gotta get, one of them's gotta be.
with a $4,000 trading allowance, that's what the other ones are about, whatever.
It's somewhere in there to compare.
Right, yep.
All right, James' motion wants,
I'll second it.
Unorthodox. I said, are we unorthodox? We can't make that motion. Too many times or we'll lose our place, but he's got it written down, so.
okay,
Yeah, he's
I'm
got
ready
it.
for the vote.
Yep, okay, so let's start with, Bob,
Yes.
Larry,
Yes.
Don,
Yes.
and, James.
Yes.
Okay,
Oh, definitely, maybe.
all of that, maybe, okay. Okay, then the next one is the streets. Did we lay that out?
The streets, or did you want to talk about the trailer?
Oh,
There's,
yeah, there's information on a trailer there that if we have to haul those mowers out to the lagoon site.
the trailer
The
we
trailer
have
we have
now
is an
will not, this should have probably been, will not carry a 72-inch mower. We can't get a 72-inch mower on the trailer we have now.
Okay,
It's just too tight.
what's a new trailer cost?
A new trailer, you can buy a trailer that could carry 2 lawnmowers for $6,000 from Osmond Trailer Sales. I looked at a trailer in Yankton, something that wouldn't be manually tilt bed because it takes way too long to manually tilt them. That you could load the 2 mowers on, you could load the skid loader on it. It's a heavier trailer. The one that's there is $9,200. Ted said he'd give me the $9,000 on that one. If he still has it, it's 4-month lead time if that's sold.
Where we have on All Seasons?
That was at Yankton Trailer Sales.
So we're a year away from needing that for sure.
Well,
Well-
not necessarily, we gotta get it from here to the cemetery.
Right, if we end up with a 72-inch mower yet this summer, we will have to road it from the shop to where we're going, because we can't get a deck on our trailer without tearing something up. It's just way too tight. It's sometimes difficult to get a 60 on.
Can't we don't have the mower yet, of course.
Right.
We can look around and see if we can find maybe a used trailer so we don't, just to get us to this point.
Right, yeah.
I mean,
Right, I just
there's
looked
trailers and
real, I
everything
just
up for
looked
sale
real
because
quick
things
for
get tight.
information.
People are selling stuff all the time.
If we would need to take a skid loader out to the dump, that trailer, that $9,000 tilt bed would haul
Yeah.
the skid loader.
That would make sense.
If we're going to retain the ability to patch our streets with cold mix and stuff, we would be able to put the accessories that would fit on the skid loader on the trailer and take them right to the spot rather than go back with the skid loader and get each piece. So,
What do we take,
so it kinda depends.
what do we take the skid loader to the dump for? I thought you just used.
No, out to the lagoon. Let's say we had some rodent work or something. I mean, it's just another way we could use the trailer. You know, the lighter trailer from Osmond's $3,000 less, but it won't handle the weight of the skid loader. And maybe that's what you want. I'm just trying to throw options at you.
I would rather go with the heavier skid loader, heavier wagon, just in case you need it. Who knows if you need it? You might need it 5 years from now, but you have it.
I'd rather have a heavier one than bend a lighter one.
Yes, I would.
Then you're out of a disaster,
I would too.
but, you know,
Just to give you a quick visual, I think, I don't know if were these in the packet, Cheryl, these pictures, or?
I don't think so.
Did we miss, that's the one from Osmond,
Yeah.
and this is the This is the trailer from Yankton Trailers,
Oh, from Chuck.
it's not Chuck, it's his son Ted.
Yeah.
I had to think about it. This has a valve, you could back a mower on it and then get the other mower on it, and there's a valve on the side, and then turn the valve and the bed will come down. He has another trailer that's manual for less, but you wouldn't be able to load two on it at a time like you would this one. This is off the internet, a picture from Osmond Trailer Sale, and this is the one that Ted had up there about 2 weeks ago.
My question is, what half-ton pickup is that, all that stuff on there?
You're only good for 5 miles.
I'm in my own way.
That's something. Well, that's something to think about too. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Right, yeah. If we had the old Ford, I would use a big one. Is that?
It might last for a little bit, but it's at least.
Well, we're looking at just moving the mowers at this point, you know, the skid loader thing, that's like James said, I don't know when, just food for thought. We will need to move whatever we do. Yeah.
What I gave you now is not with the trailers, guys,
Right.
okay? So you wanna decide about a trailer at this point or not? Cause he's sitting there with them on hand too. There again, we're looking at ordering stuff. So, might as well get, because we're not gonna be mowing out at the lagoon this year, of course. But, just a thought.
Bob, what do you think?
I think we need to wait and see where this lagoon thing goes. I know-
Say what?
Wait and see what happens with our lagoon thing, that's just my opinion. See what happens, where we go, we obviously have to do something, but I don't know what the timing of that's all gonna be.
Okay.
That's just my opinion.
Do we do a much other hauling? I mean, are we at
The
that?
big thing is just getting the zero turn mower around. I mean, the 18, no, it's not 18, I think it's 17 miles an hour top speed. So without a trailer, we're gonna have to drive it wherever we go with it.
As long as that's around town. How much do we haul it now?
We haul it wherever it goes.
Okay.
Every place we go now, we haul it. It's faster.
Okay, well, let's just let that sit for a bit. Those yellow sheets I gave you, you all have, you have what Larry secured from Knife River earlier on was, and that's not in that packet. This is all over there. I think that's in that notebook. I did not recopy those. Those you
Knife
have.
River was just.
It just gave us a per foot.
Just a number is all.
Yeah, it gave us a per
Not an
foot.
actual bid,
Yeah, it gave us a per foot
just a
cost.
number to start with.
A per foot cost did not include any of the rest of the stuff. Then we had, at one time we had a bid on the fixing the concrete. I think that would be, you'd call that a bid. And then these two people that came in, one's from Sioux City, moving to Norfolk. And if you look at those, that's, the Grimes one is strictly, that bid is for milling up 2 inches, and putting 2 inches of hot mix down. And when he came to town, I said, well, you know, we want to get a specific bid for a specific place. So the guys took him out to beginning at the elevator on Fifth Street. And that goes, we took him all the way through to Chad Potts' house. So that goes in front of the school, across.
Okay.
That's his bid, that's $163,000. Is there anything, Pat, that is, what did we talk about that is not included in there? It's 2 inches up, 2 inches down.
That's it, yeah,
Yeah, that's it.
there's no armor coating, no chip sealing.
And
No crack.
everything should be
sealing
chip
up.
sealed after it's done so that it seals that so the water can't get in. So then along comes Harry. And he's something of a character, but this guy is down by Geneva, and we were talking about getting someone else to do our roads, and that's exactly what this company does. They do the roads at Coolidge. Pat put a call in to somebody he knows over there, and he is on the council, and they said that he's been doing it for a while, hasn't he?
Yeah, they didn't know for sure, but they knew it was at least 3 years.
Where's that at?
Coleridge.
So this guy wasn't from Coleridge?
No, he's not from Coleridge, he's contracted by Coleridge,
Or,
and he's
Yeah.
doing the work. And
Right.
then Larry and I went to Wayne for one of our classes, we drove through and to take a look at, and it looks good. So, I mean, it's close, if you wanna look and see what kind of work the guy does.
And so what he would like to do is to get where he gets to do the upkeep. And he would do kind of like what we did with Johnson in the sewer deal, where they'll come in and do so much of the sewer every year and so forth for cleaning and so forth. So that's what he would do, is kind of keep track of the streets and take care of the ones that are bad and so forth. Now, he's not gonna come and fill potholes. So, but he will do armor coating, he will do the milling up and the redoing, the overlays, whatever.
We do patchwork.
As he went to the same area, so look at his bid, his estimate. So he would do, where's his?
Start at the bottom and kind of work.
Yeah,
up.
it goes backwards. From the bottom, he does the milling. And he would do from Fifth Street, and whoever wrote this thought that was Harold Street, I think, or something like that. There's some mix up in the names of the street, but that's okay. But it's the same street. He went from the elevator to Potts' house on Fifth Street. Then he went out, because we told him that there was the Wyoming and Colorado Street had not had any upkeep for a long time, and that it was pretty thin out there. So he went out and looked at that, and he said, well, there's really nothing to mill there. There's nothing left, basically. But he would do a block and a half, that's Wyoming Street. And he said that would be milled where it needed it. And the reason he said where it needs it, because he said a lot of it is so thin that whatever.
He would do the same thing of milling 3 inches at the curb, and his miller's 8 foot wide. He would mill at 1 inch, 8 feet in. And that's where he said, when I look at these streets, that's where your damage is. In the middle of your street's pretty good. He says, I don't wanna do anything that's gonna jeopardize me coming back. I know that I can do this, I've done it. And so milling 3 at the curb would get more thickness than Larry and I have found the 3 years that I've been here. And then that would get
And
that,
it addresses
and then the
that
garbage
crown.
trucks wouldn't bust through
Right.
as easily. And then the 2 chip seals, 2 coats of chip seals and then there's plastic they can put into stuff that makes it more
But
flexible.
that's not in this price, the plastic is not.
The plastic's not, yeah, but they could do that too, so all those things would help us get our roads back up in shape.
Well, and he kind of addressed that thing that Jerry talks about a lot, with that crown at the middle of the road, and he said, if you build your sides up, you kind of address that. But then notice also, then the next one is the asphalt overlay. The crack sealing is,
He would seal any cracks before he would,
before you,
before this, that way there's less potential for moisture to get down through. He says, I'm a firm believer in
Yeah.
crack sealing.
Yep.
You
And then
think-
the asphalt patching and the armor coating, and he would, but somewhere in here, if the cracks includes that concrete.
Yeah, the Second Street.
Yeah,
He
so
would
he's,
do the
he's,
layer, sealing
this
and.
bid includes the entire Fifth Street section that we did, all of Wyoming Street, and sealing the concrete on, in front of the park.
Right down here.
Mike,
So
I got a-
that's
I got a question.
127.
I got a question for Mike.
Okay,
Maybe me, myself, I would like to see the whole town get hot mix on. We gotta have specifications, correct? We gotta have somebody watching it, how it's going, and then the architect or the engineer has to go out and get bids. We just can't pick two guys because they do a good job, is that correct?
Well, you guys have to decide what exactly you want.
The specifications that we want.
Your specifications, you need to be able to, compare apples to apples.
Another thing is, we have to get Steve Parr here to tell us exactly what street to the board, where we are with each street and what he recommends as a street superintendent. We pay him, he should be coming here telling us, and nobody sat down in front of us as a board and says, okay, this street needs more work, Jerry Steffen Street, we know we gotta clear that out because it's too high, everything's gotta get redone. He knows that. I think we need an engineer to
There's it.
run the specs.
there it is.
Well,
This is a letter from Steve Parr
I understand,
that his recommendation after the corings.
but he never, this is the first I've seen this.
Your address,
You
is
got
addressed
it
to
in the
you.
packet.
Well, we need an engineer to keep an eye on how this is gonna go. The engineer has to find the bids, right? Go out and look for contractors, is that right?
Well, you can have whomever you want do the bids. I guess what I would just say is this, is you as a board need to feel comfortable with what you're doing and getting whatever information that you need. So if you want him to come, then he should be here.
The next thing is, okay, we're talking about this street, that street right now with these guys here, right? Is that correct, Cheryl? You had, by the elevator and by the school or wherever it was. I wanna make sure every street is gonna have the same, because next time we do it, these guys might not be doing it.
I just told you that that's what he wants to do, Larry, that they want this job.
Where's our specification, Cheryl?
What
Where are we
spec,
supposed
you
to
tell
be?
me what specification you want.
Not me, as a board, we need to do it, not me only.
Well, but what specification do you want?
We wanna figure out where it is thick enough and where it's not thick enough. We don't, it shows here, Steve Barr should be telling us, and the engineer should be here, and he should take it and make sure he's watching this whole job, not like what happened out here. That should have never happened.
Larry, that several people, if you will just listen to me a minute, several people have said that see, if any concrete is gonna crack, it doesn't matter.
Cheryl, I poured a lot of concrete, I've
Okay.
seen it,
So you know it cracks.
but not where they dug the trench.
May I finish? That's going to crack. You fill it, but if you tear the whole thing out, you're just starting over with something that's already done. And there's, Steve Parr's letter that I read said, one of the things, if you're gonna fix that, is to make sure that the infrastructure is intact underneath. What he said was, you don't know what shape it might be in if it's old. It's not old, that's the newest part of town. We know that infrastructure is brand new. That's the newest and the best street in town. Now, let me finish. Steve Parr is not an engineer.
No,
He is a surveyor, but he is not an engineer.
I know that.
He is our street superintendent.
Yes.
And the biggest part of the street superintendent has been to make sure that we turn, the first year that he was our street superintendent, he did the lane miles, he did all of that kind of stuff. The next year, he turned that all over to me and I did it, and then this past year, it's been done by Arlene. So he's not really, other than when we ask him for something, he arranged all of those borings, and there's the report right there that he came back with that said all of those, where those are etched, that those are appropriate for milling and replacing. He doesn't have to tell us any other specs because, and those, that's why we picked that street, that's in there.
Let me explain something to
Okay.
you. I poured a lot of concrete, and wherever you dig a trench for a water line, sewer line, and you go over it, if you don't pack it, and nobody was watching, because they just left and go do it. Underneath there, the ground does settle. If you don't pack it right and run rebar where you got the trench is right here. If you don't run rebar over the cross of that, it's gonna sink. It takes 7 years before that ground actually settles down. But if you put rebar, you see highways and you see Yankton. When they cut those out, they put rebar on this side and carry that over there.
How do you know there's no rebar down there?
I'll bet you I can cut, I'll go get my saw and I'll cut it, and there's no rebar in there. I'll bet you.
If there were,
If
according.
there was rebar, it wouldn't crack like that.
Oh, yes, it will.
Where did you pour concrete and see that? I pour a lot of concrete, Cheryl. I've done a lot of years.
And none of yours has ever cracked.
A hairline crack, nothing like that.
Okay.
They used one of those big machines and they just trolled over the top of it.
How do you know that?
Cheryl, I live here. I
So you
watched it.
watched them build that road?
I seen the machine with that sheep's foot on it. I'm not stupid.
So they
Is
did-
that sheep
so
foot
they
is a
did-
packer, isn't it?
What?
So they did pack it.
If
With
that's
the- with
sheep
the-
foot on the
Whoa, whoa,
record,
whoa, 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 there's only one of you can talk at a time, I can't even keep track of this. I'm sorry. Okay, who wants to go? Larry, you done, or you?
No, I'm not done.
Okay.
I talked to, Bill Stevens pours a lot of concrete, way more than I ever thought about doing. Anytime he has a trench and they have to pour concrete over time, they run rebar, just like the state does, just like Yankton. You seen Yankton? They had those cut out, they put rebar across, connected to carry. We got semis from Caton's, semis from the grocery store, and semis from the lumberyard going over that road. That's a heavy traffic road. That is. And if they had that trench and they didn't pack it with a plate packer and get it down to a compression test, it's gonna crack, right there.
Pat, did you have something to say?
We were just talking, we were
He
just, I was
asked me
asking questions,
questions.
sorry.
Well, you know,
I think I've got my notes right.
well, I guess I would just say this, you know, from my perspective, and I realize I'm not a part of this deal, but you know, as I look at it, here's what I would say. You know, you as a board have to decide what information you need to make a decision, and who you want to give you the information. Because, you know, the mayor is giving you some information, there's some stuff in there. If you don't feel like you have enough information, then the question then becomes is who do you need to have brought before the board to give you information so that you can make a decision? And right now, what I'm hearing is that we don't have a consensus as to what information you have or to be able to answer your questions. Is that pretty much it? So then if that's the deal, then it's a matter of, okay, who do you want here? So that everybody has an opportunity to ask the same question, that type of thing, before you make a decision.
Okay, by you saying that, Steve Parr is a surveyor and a street superintendent, I agree with that. We need to have an engineer, because they do that for us. We got JEO on staff, what? We don't have JEO, Cheryl?
Nope.
We
I
don't?
can't say they're on staff. We named them as our city engineer, but we pay them every dime, and the thing is, Larry, those people, if I were going to rename an engineer, it would not be JEO. There's nothing we've asked them to do, I'm sorry, but it didn't cost us an arm and a leg for an engineer. That we did not get, I think, our money's worth, but that's my opinion. Now, you asked me and I
What do you
said
think, Jim?
publicly.
Well,
Ron Noor did us more good out here than the JEO's ever done.
2 inches, in my opinion, is not thick enough.
Say that again.
2 inches, we're doing 2 inches. 2 inches is not gonna be thick enough. And what we're not even discussing is cement. We need bids for cement on these same streets. Then you have to take into consideration, asphalt's gonna last about 15 years. You have to have 4% of this every year for the next 15 years to redo it. You gotta consider what it's gonna cost to overlay and seal this every single, or how many years, every 5 years.
About every 5. yeah.
So then you gotta take that number, and you gotta do that over 60 years. That's how long cement's gonna last, 60 years with no maintenance.
When the engineers just if I can add,
Mhm.
what I know. that
Yep.
When we did the assessment Southwest, they said 15 years on concrete to 7 years on asphalt. So
What do you
it's
mean
not
15?
quite that.
What do you mean 15?
15 without maintenance. You still have to seal.
They still consider like the crack sealing and that stuff in the maintenance, so it's, it depends on how you're trying to put the definition of.
You probably
maintenance or no
you never
maintenance.
replace
You're never gonna
concrete,
replace, let's just say,
but
you
you
never
have to put
replace,
something
but you
over
don't
it.
have to chip seal it, you don't have to do this,
Yeah.
and it'll last, and 60 years, I'm sure it'll last 50 years, 60 years.
If we're gonna do it, we gotta do it.
And the reason I can say 60 years is when I grew up in Beaver replaced every street in that town when I was 7 years old. I'm 55. And those streets they look exactly as they did now, as they did when they put it in.
I would be interested to know what they have done for maintenance.
You know, I could find out, I can know the mayor, I could ask them what, you know, do you guys have a maintenance plan for the street? Is there a
Do they do
maintenance plan?
something like every 5 years, like an overlay, or, something?
No,
But-
absolutely nothing. There's no maintenance, just
Yes,
cement. And I talked to Ron Norton, and I talked to Chris Wortman, and they both told me, don't do anything but cement.
that's great, but then we're gonna do a lot shorter space.
That's fine. You know, I'm not gonna argue that. You're 100% true. We can't do this much. But in our lifetime, in our kids' lifetime, they'll never have to do it again. Compared, in our lifetime, we'll have to do this 2 more times.
Well, and the thing of it is how many blocks, I had that, the lane miles, at one time, how many blocks we had in town.
I counted approximately 109 blocks on the map.
So we're doing, and this bid is for like 5, 6, 7. So, how, in the meantime, James, in the meantime, while we're trying to put the money together for concrete,
Yep.
how many potholes, et cetera, do we wanna drive through? And if that's okay, if we wanna just save our money for that, then we better be building a strip so that we've got the material to fill the potholes, so people aren't tearing the vehicles up in the meantime.
Well, and we can go down that strip discussion. We've done it 50 times. We don't need to buy a whole strip. The county will sell
The
it.
county is gonna let us have so much.
Well, we
here.
can build one cheaper, but that's okay, that's up to you.
Well, we can discuss that, but
Yeah.
what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get 3 cement bids on the same thing. But I also, then we also need to know what is chip sealing on this gonna cost. Do the math,
It's
add,
included in this,
yeah, but not in 5 years, it's not.
right,
In 5 years, and
Right,
then
it's
replace
replaced,
it.
yeah, it's
And add 4% to that every year, to this price, for the next 50 years, then we'll see what's more cost effective.
Jim, you're gonna have to put what I told you about these semis, that concrete has to be 8 inches thick.
Yeah,
All the way down to the lumberyard and back, because that's where the heavy traffic is on semis.
I don't
We know we
and-
get semis.
And I don't know if they would do anything less than 8 inches there.
Probably not. It'd
I
be-
don't think
it'd
they
be-
would.
It'd be smarter if we did it that way, and never have to touch
I'll
it.
get every bit at 8 inches, but what you gotta do, you gotta do the math, you gotta do this times 4% every year, plus the chip sealing, plus the
Yeah,
maintenance,
right.
plus the potholes, plus this, and then see which one's cheaper, and I guarantee it'll be cement.
And my concern is on Second Street, it's not so much the crack, it's that it's shifted. It's uneven, and when I walk down Middle Second Street, when I'm out looking around at night, it's uneven, it's like, it's offset. So it's dropped a little bit,
In the
it's not
road?
just
There's no
crack.
rebar in there.
out in the street.
Yeah, one side is higher than the other side.
Right,
Right, and there's no rebar in there, because the
It's
rebar
like-
wouldn't drop.
So I'm not,
Well, if it wasn't packed underneath, and you already said that, Larry, if you don't have it packed under the rebar, doesn't matter, that rebar is just.
That's where the
I can say rebar,
that's where the sewer line was.
Wherever it is, it could be anywhere, but if it's not
They
packed
use
under
5
that
inch, they use
rebar.
5-inch thick rebar, coated. And they do it in Yankton, and Mike knows it because every time they go and take that Highway 81, and they cut out, and you got the grunts cutting in horizontally across, and they pour. They use 8-inch concrete and rebar that's 5 inch thick.
Well, just,
I can get the bids, I'll do the
It's
math.
up to you guys.
The only thing I need to know is what it costs to chip seal this stuff every 5 years. Yeah,
It's
can
gonna,
you
it's
get
gonna
that for
change,
me?
it's gonna change because
Yeah,
it's
it's
a
gonna-
change of oil, and change of gravel.
Well, I understand, I need to know what it would cost today. That I can add 4% to that for inflation for the next
We
5 years.
can call these people that do it.
Yeah, I'll call them. Find out what chip sealing gonna cost us if we use it.
For a while.
Every how many years? And how long does a 2-inch asphalt street last?
Yep.
Is it 5 years, is it 10 years, is it 25 years?
Just look out here at the highways. Highway 12 wasn't done too long ago. They're already, they put hot asphalt on it,
Yeah,
and look at it already.
it's already cracked.
I mean, they get a lot more traffic than Crofton, sure, but the elements are gonna be eating it up. But they won't do that to concrete though.
100%.
That's why, so that's why we have road construction every year on every highway, during some portions. So if the United States could all afford concrete bases, we probably wouldn't have all that. I'm gonna guess that we do that because the concrete is expensive enough that we can't, they
8
can't do
inches
it.
of concrete and 8 inches of asphalt are $2 more for concrete. That's it.
And I thought you,
I already got the numbers. 8 inches of concrete, 8-inch asphalt is $2 more for asphalt, or for concrete, that's it.
I can't trust that number, James,
I got
because.
it in my office.
I
already asked.
understand you may have it, but asphalt
Asphalt is louder,
is what?
louder,
What do you mean?
higher is louder.
Well, fine, but that's not the cost, I mean,
It's louder, and that's why they don't do it. I had an engineer tell me that too. I've looked into this, I've talked to
that's
several
why they
people.
don't do it?
Yep,
Well, then it's not the cost.
it's not the cost. I never said it was the cost.
But you said there was only $2 difference.
It is. You're the one that said it was cheaper, it's not any cheaper. It's not any cheaper to do asphalt over cement.
Okay, so let me see if I'm getting what you're saying. You're saying that asphalt is not that much cheaper than concrete, but they don't use it because it's too loud to drive on.
100%.
Then why would we say that the concrete will last for 50 years or whatever you said?
Ask them.
And
don't ask me.
asphalt won't.
Ask them, don't ask me, I don't do the roads. But I can tell you what the numbers I have in front of me, asphalt and concrete,
It just seems that those two don't jive, you know?
I'm just telling you what
What? Yeah.
the truth is.
When is H and L asphalt here, are they gonna grind up the old and put it back down again? Are they hauling it away? Cause I see on the other bid where it's removal and hauling away and disposal of the old removed.
H&L was, they have their own miller, just like you saw it on 121. They would remove the millings and dump them off-site. It's not on here.
Okay, so
But
it is.
but that's what he said.
Alright.
They would haul it off-site to a site we wanted it
Okay.
and dump it.
Well, I was just comparing apples
So
with
it would
apples.
be hot, they would put hot mix back with what they milled on.
So they wouldn't be repurposing the old
They
stuff.
use some of it, don't they?
They wouldn't.
Okay.
They would not be
No,
repurposing.
it's not reclamation.
Then that $5,600 new road additive that's on the Grimes bid, that's what H&L would be adding in addition to, if we asked them to, they would add that.
If we asked,
If we
yes.
asked.
Right. And that's basically recycled plastic that makes the hot asphalt more flexible and gives it more life. I went on the internet and searched it. I've got some information that talked, salesmanship talked about why you want to use it
Okay.
if you're interested.
All right. Thank you.
Well, so, let's move on.
Officially tabling that for more information.
I can reckon. Okay, so the next one is, what if we know what part that our maintenance is gonna play, then they have to have the equipment to do that. So if you haven't decided what they're gonna do with the streets, then there's nothing we can do about it.
Yeah, there's no sense in making a
Yeah.
decision on what
Yeah.
we're doing.
Yeah. So, that will be tabled or whatever, just, unfinished. The lagoon,
Can
I
we
guess
go-
I'll let.
Can we though talk about street maintenance is the fact that we do need something to patch potholes with currently, because we need some materials, right? Something, we have nothing now, right, to fix potholes out there.
We're buying, we can buy hot mix in the bags like everybody has. I think there's 12 bags up in the shop now that I bought from Menards. It's the stuff the state county uses to fill potholes. Other than that, we have absolutely.
Works pretty good.
Have you checked with Knox County and see if they would sell us whatever, 150 yards or whatever we need to get buy from their strip? Because last year I asked them and they said, sure, you gotta talk to this Mike that works at the yards, and I think his name is Mike, works at Center. And I talked to him and he says, yeah, he says, we can get you, 150 yards or whatever we need to fill potholes. And that's,
And Mike doesn't have that authority, I'm told. I talked with the Knox County Road Superintendent, and he said that we would have to apply to him, and he would know at the time whether we had any spare.
right, that's what I was gonna say too.
I've heard rumblings from the county that they understand that question has been asked, and they've asked, well, how much do you want? And I was like,
We don't know.
I have no idea, I don't know, we don't have a street plan, we haven't talked about what we wanna try to do, or we, if we're gonna just patch potholes, we just as well, instead of buying the stuff from Menards, there's a salesman that came out of Norfolk that we buy a few things from and have in the past. They sell that stuff by the pallet. And we could buy the pallet, like 30, 40, I
A
don't know
little
how many.
cheaper that way?
I haven't had the chance to ask prices, but she did say they have it available. And if I remember correctly, their price was more than $1 cheaper than what we could buy it at Menards. But that's, I'd have to look for sure, but I thought it was cheaper. And we could go to Norfolk and save shipping. Some of the chemicals for the pool would have cost $130 for the shipping from Norfolk to here. And I sent Dustin down.
Do you get chemicals for the pool at Norfolk too? Is that what you said?
We did because 1-inch tablets are in short supply and you can't get them.
So we could buy that pallet
So
of
yeah, we
pallet there and that pool stuff at the same time?
well, if we link it up right, yes.
But we can still buy it and put it on the strip if you wanna do it that way too.
Oh, we could, yes, and the county is contemplating working with us, but they would want more exact numbers of what we have planned, how much we want, that sort of thing, because, just like us, they don't wanna build any more than they've got planned to use in the next 2 years. Because once you go through that third winter.
And then let me stop us right there too, because if we do the stuff on the strip, we have to have oil, we have to have the oil truck, we have to all of that stuff, and we have to chip and seal, and we don't really have a way to do that effectively. And so again, we're right back now to stuff in the bags. Remember, we run the test strip right out here on the street. We did half the street from the strip and half of the street with the bags, and the bags was gone sooner, broke up faster.
Well, we didn't armor coat it.
Any of it.
We armor coated ours because you have to, otherwise it'd be gone
Okay.
in months.
But we're not armor coating, is what I'm saying.
Right, because that takes oil and that
Because that
takes
takes
rocks.
oil and stuff, and we don't
And
have
the
it.
problem with buying our oil, it changes with the oil market, and they don't like to bring half loads, and the load is 5,000 gallons. I mean, we could, but we're gonna pay for it.
So,
That's something to
so,
think
so,
about, too.
buying that is just buying from the county or buying from them is not all of it. You've gotta buy the oil, you gotta have the equipment to apply it, you gotta, so.
Compaction.
So we're back to, compaction,
Compaction
we're back
is
to
key
the,
on cold mix. The better you compact it, the longer you can expect.
What do we have to pack?
A very, very old tire packer, or the skid loader tire, or the payloader tire.
So nothing.
basically, because that old Packer is, I've taken my fairy dust and it's still running, but who knows how long my fairy dust is gonna last.
Right.
So we're, you know, we're just short of equipment, short of everything.
All things to consider.
Yep. Okay. So, James, you're gonna look at some things there on the street before we make a decision, is that what we've decided?
Yep, I'll have it by the next meeting.
Pardon?
I'll have it by the next meeting.
Okay, that's fine. So that's tabled as well. So at least we're getting a discussion and working. Okay, so let's don't table this. You have a list. The pool staff, I think I gave you in this last bunch of stuff.
You just need a motion.
Nikki sent this to me the other day, and there's two things that I want in this vote, if you will. The pool operators have to take a test, and they do it on the internet. And then it qualifies them, and I can't even remember if it's $20, $30, $50. I'm pretty sure it's under 100, okay? And I think we paid for those last year. Nikki asked if we paid for those. I don't see a problem with that. She's got who she wants for her pool operators. I saw her in Walmart the other night, and she said, should they start thinking of that? And I said, until we get that crack fixed and we know that he's got the material to do it, the minute he gives us the go-ahead, we can get a hold of you, and then they can take their test, and that way they're not taking it for not. We could, in your approval or disapproval of this list, and note at the bottom, if I did on mine. In the office, I would like us to approve Megan Tramp as kind of the same thing as a part-timer. She'll be able to come in around her school activities, kind of like the pool people do. She's a junior, and she just kind of like to see if she likes office work, etc. And there's all kinds of filing and stuff that with us being short-handed in there, that she could get a few hours a week. So I'd like you to approve the personnel, and then I would like you to approve the payment of the operator's fees to get licensed on that. I think that would do it.
Do we pay Megan the same as we pay a lifeguard?
Yeah, unexperienced. So we have that inexperienced plus the experienced, and we would start her as that inexperienced, I think, yeah.
Is she specifically limited to the office, or could
Yes.
she paint street lines?
She could do anything within, I'd say, the office or the maintenance, because we
Okay.
might have her cleaning, and that would,
Okay,
you know.
I just didn't know the scope of her
Yeah,
activities, but.
yeah.
She can't really
With Shelley Anderson she's never completely left. She's worked part-time in the office. She's interested in helping with meter reading if they need to. Arlene was down on the weekend, and a couple of days last week. She just, as long as she can last, and she's home. Nicole has come in and said she needs to rethink. She really wants to work here, but she had a lot going on at the time, so she was in part days, a couple days this week, or one day this week, and she's coming back tomorrow. So we have check signers in Nicole and Arlene. So if we can make that work and have Megan help with the stuff that, like Arlene always did so much of, was the filing and the organizing and so forth and so on, if we can take up some of the slack there. And then we'll have to get Nicole maybe trained in more of the clerk work, because she's done more of the treasurer type stuff, the books. And she can still do that, but we're still straightening out some things on QuickBooks that'll help make that. Eddie had updated that program and told us not to update QuickBooks at all because they got hacked, so we had some problems of just not putting stuff in for a while. So I think we're gonna get there. I'm glad you brought that up, James, because I believe that at one time I was told, and I think that was, I don't even remember whether it was auditors or who, that if we have, for example, 16 is our wage, that in their training period, we can choose to pay them less than that until they're fully trained. But one of the things that the auditors told us was that we had underpaid somebody because they didn't move up that scale, and that would have been Arlene, because every time I'd say, get her on full-time wage, and Arlene would say, oh no, I don't need to cost the city anything, I'm just trying to help out. And Lisa took Arlene's word for it, because, you know, because she's right there, she's sitting right there, and she said, no, I don't need that. So we got dinged on that, because she was a full-time employee, and we weren't paying her full-time wages. However, I asked Ryan to make sure that she's on that full-time roster and that disability insurance may come in. So we're working on that, so you kind of want to keep that in mind, that hopefully that'll work out for her. She's back taking, she's back to taking her chemo, so they kind of got her past that crisis of the diverticulosis, so hopefully she's on the way back. So anyway, with that in mind, I had started Nicole at 15 rather than the 16. 16 is the full wage because of the statement that we could, but she's been here but only part-time. So when we get to that point where she's put in full-time, we'll need to go to 16. The other thing is when we raise the wage of maintenance, that puts Dustin at a beginning wage. But I've talked with him, and we've talked about that same idea of training, and I think that that he agreed when we had that discussion. Pat, did we say that he would start at 20?
1850 where I started is what I recall.
Okay, yeah, okay.
Is where he was started at.
And then when he goes to full time, he goes to 20, which is $2 less than the head.
I don't remember.
So we may have to revisit that, is what I'm saying. Because we didn't, remember, James, you remember that? You said we just pay it because we'll have to anyway when it comes in. So we've got to make a distinction there, maybe. And if you want to give all of them a raise, I don't care. So, does that take care of all that?
Did the Crofton Foundation, they had an ad in the paper that they gonna offer somebody to work in Crofton. Did you see that?
I did see that.
And is that something we can tap into or not?
I don't know, they have not said anything.
Larry at the bank, he's a good guy to call on that.
The way I read that, I couldn't quite remember, I couldn't quite figure out whether it was an internship to work just anywhere in the city, or if it was gonna be different jobs.
You got me there too. I was at the foundation meeting and he talked about it at that meeting, and then I didn't really read the whole article in the paper because there was something about it in the paper too.
Right.
And to go along with it, but,
Yeah.
that might
Are
be
you
somebody.
part of the foundation, James? Do you know?
No.
Anybody part of the foundation? Larry, do you know anything about that?
I missed the last meeting.
Larry and I were both at that meeting where Larry said that.
It's to work for the foundation.
It's to work for the
Yeah,
foundation.
it's gonna be Sarah Kleinschmidt, and you can't have her because she's already working for me.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay.
It's part-time on both accounts, but
Okay. So she's gotta be working part-time at the Journal
yeah.
and then part-time for the foundation. Oh. That's another job. Okay, so is there anything else here on the?
We gotta make a motion on the pool.
Yeah,
I'll make a
so
motion.
there's nothing else there, but I think the acting clerk, the lifeguards office, I think I covered it all.
I have a question on the test.
Okay,
I would be willing to pay for it if they pass it. If they don't pass it,
that could be an issue.
I don't think we shouldn't pay it.
Technically, he's right. Technically, most people don't pay it. But it's up to us how we decide to do that.
Well, I don't think there's a problem with that. We should put that in motion, that we'll pay for the test when they pass it or when they are certified. They bring their that certification in and we'll pay it. If they don't, they can't work as operators anyway. And then that doesn't qualify. You wanna make the motion,
I'll
Don?
make the motion.
Or do you want?
Hire Megan and the lifeguards and pay for the test if they pass it.
Okay, motion by James to hire for the list and the payment of the successfully passed test.
I'll second.
Second by Don, start with Larry.
Yes.
Don,
Yes.
James,
Yes.
and Don.
Yes.
I think that's it, so next
I got
regular.
a question. People been asking me, is the pool gonna be open by Memorial Day?
We have no idea unless we can't do anything until they get the body. The man told us we were second on the list and he thought had enough material, is that right?
How big a crack is it? I haven't been down.
Well,
How long?
It's from the 3 foot mark clear down to where it was last year.
So.
It's
so
not,
what
it's
is it-
probably not gonna take as much material.
What are they gonna do to it? I mean, you're gonna peel it out before,
Peel it out and put back that epoxy.
what are they putting concrete back in there and then?
No, it's
They said
epoxy and,
I thought so, but
it's an
you're right.
epoxy and resin mix.
Yeah, I don't think
It's specially designed for pools to handle the water. But the problem is the floor is heaving and the floor is soft enough. That's
We
why
know we
we
don't have a
guarantee
perfect
it.
pool, I'm just saying, is it possible that, if we know they're coming within 3 days, we could have it cut out for them so they could speed it up a little bit? I mean, what does it take to cut that out? A
I
grinder?
think he cut it out, he ground pieces.
Last year, he just scraped it up and sandblasted and then painted.
Well, I mean, we're not
I
talking that,
mean, if we did it, we'd probably save a couple hours, I'm thinking maybe at the most.
well, you know, people are gonna they're asking me already, and I have no idea. I don't know
Well-
where we're at with it.
Well, he held back resin for us, and he hopes he has enough, but I can't remember what meeting.
Every
Last
meeting.
meeting or whatever, he said he's having trouble getting what he needs to fix pools. And since we waited so long, that he can't guarantee, cause he's waiting on his materials. He's waiting on materials yet from a job that was brand new last year. He said, he said, I'm kinda at the mercy of first come, first serve as supplies last.
Is there, I mean, how deep a crack are we talking? Are we talking 2-inch crack or 2-inch wide, or what are we talking?
I haven't busted it open, but it's just like it was last year. The widest place is probably 10 inches wide.
How
And,
deep?
it's, you know, it's just a coating. I mean, it's not, we're not talking 3-4 inches. We're talking ½ inch, ¼ inch probably.
Well, my
And then
question,
where the
is
crack is
going
a
to,
little
if we could grind it up and they make a product called vinyl patch, it's really good at patching stuff. I mean, I'm not saying we're gonna have a perfect thing, but at least we could help him out and make it so if he ain't here, we can still use it. You know what I'm
Well,
saying?
He plans on coming. Well, I talked to him
When?
last week, and he says, I've got 2 pools in front of you, and I'm hoping that I can get there
But
by
you gotta-
Friday,
You also gotta look at
This
the time it
Friday,
takes to
next
fill the pool
last
back.
Friday.
It takes time to fill that pool, it did last time.
Yeah,
It ain't like it just dumps the water and they're full.
right,
Okay, but
Right.
may I ask you something, Larry?
Sure.
If we don't happen to get it open by Memorial Day, we didn't last year, it didn't affect the kids in their summer fun, it didn't make anybody sick. I mean, if we get that pool open, we're lucky. So
what answers are we supposed to get when we get asked? That's what I'm
just
saying.
tell them that we're working on it. I get
I've
calls
been
too.
telling people we're doing our best.
You know, but we're not gonna sit around and blame everybody here and say we should be doing it. We're waiting to let the professional do his thing. Before I forget it, Mike just reminded me that in that motion, we talked about hiring the pool, but that we need that specific that Megan, the office help also. Is that what you guys intended?
What was that, I'm sorry?
We talked about hiring the pool people, but you intend for Megan to office help?
Yeah, I should Megan, I said Megan.
Okay.
Yeah, I just said.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
No, thank you, because I don't have it in the minutes, so.
Okay, we need to make sure that
Thank
it's
you
all
for
approved,
me.
yeah. And, I think that until this guy tells us that we just can't do this, we just need to have some patience and just tell the people that call you that, tell them to light a fire under the mayor, that's what they're all saying, so. I would hear a motion to adjourn.
We're not done with this yet.
You forgot the lagoon thing.
Oh, the lagoon, I'm gonna let you do that, Mike, if you want.
Well, the only thing I would say, what I know about it, what I've been asked to do is this. Let me give you a little bit of background. We have this thing from the Nebraska Department of Environmental and Energy. They're on your backs about the lagoon and getting that done. And there was some, before I started, there was a schedule that you're supposed to follow, that I was in contact. And I can't remember the fellow's name right now, but anyway, I think it's Steve Thomas, I think is what he's the attorney that's worked on that. And because of the pandemic and with issues of all of the getting supplies and all those type of things, they agreed to extend and redo the scheduling of it. So what you have, first of all, for a scheduling part of it, they agreed at that time that May 1st, there was gonna be, you're gonna execute engineering contracts for the design and construction. Then the second scheduling thing was by December 1st of 2022, you would apply for a construction permit and submit all required documentation. And finally, the thing was supposed to be completed by September 1st of 2023. So as it relates to the lagoon, what I was asked to do was to contact the Cedar County attorney, because there was an issue of whether or not, where one of the places that you're looking at is whether or not there could be access down the state highway, and then you have to get authority going south, I think is what it is, on 553 by the county. And the question that I was asked to do was contact the Cedar County attorney, which I did try to do, and he did not return my phone call. Apparently the issue that they have, which would be with anybody, anytime that you have an easement or that type of thing, regardless of where anything's located, they're gonna wanna have an agreement from you as to liability. So if there's an issue comes up with there, who's liable for that, what access do you have, those type of things, which is, virtually every easement that you have. The only thing that's really different is, the names primarily and that type of stuff. And so the initial sounding of it is that, assuming Mr. Matney, I'm sure he'll call me tomorrow. I had to leave the office early for meetings, but my guess is that's what it would take to do that. I would be surprised, quite frankly, that wasn't agreed to. I mean, it's, if you assume any liability for using the pipe, that's what you do anyway. That's not requiring you to do anything differently, regardless of where this thing could or could not be located. You're gonna be looking at something, that type of a thing. And so it's not unusual at all to have that type of an agreement with them. So at this point, I have not been able to talk with him about it, but that's where you're really at. And we'd have to do the same thing with the state in that regard.
So the route you're talking about would be down Highway 12, correct?
Correct, and then you take a right on 553, or excuse me, and then I think what it is, what I was told was, it's 4,100 feet from the highway to the property. That's.
So the Cedar County is gonna let us go down the right of way of that road going north?
That's when I was asked to contact the county attorney to find out if there's an issue with that, and if there wasn't, primarily my guess is they would ask me to prepare a proposed easement that would give you authority to go down the county road. We'd have to do the same thing for the state as well.
But I also did some talking with some state people, they said, yeah, you can go down Highway 12, that's not a problem. But for some odd reason, 20 years down the road, or 10 years down the road, or whatever, if they wanna widen or do some construction on that road, Crofton is liable for digging that up and moving it. Now, that's something that we gotta think about, because we don't know what's gonna happen.
Yeah, that happens, I mean, there's a couple of projects that I'm working over in South Dakota. In fact, the road to go to, you know, they completely did that road where that turnoff is to go to Springfield.
Yep.
You know, and they completely widened that road, and so BY Water and anybody else that had utility running down that deal, it's your responsibility to move that.
But BY Water's a lot bigger than the city of Crofton, though, too.
Well, they think they are anyway.
Well, I know that. So is our real water out here too. They think they own everything. So we're looking maybe, who knows, in 20 years, some engineer comes and wants to change Highway 12. We have to go out there. I'm looking down the line so we don't have a problem. That's what I'm looking for.
You would be responsible for moving it at your cost.
You can cross underneath it, but if you go alongside in the right of way,
Well, if you ever, if because of construction, the state comes in and whatever they wanna do, and your line is in the way, it's your responsibility to move it now and pay for it.
and if you don't got permission from, because you'd have to go towards the other side of the fence, because they're not gonna let you go in the middle of the highway if they're gonna redo the highway.
They'd have to be in the ditches. They'd have to be in the ditches.
Would they
So,
automatically renew the easement if someone?
well, you'd want a perpetual easement.
Yeah.
You wouldn't want
So
a
that-
timeline deal, you'd wanna have it so it's there the whole time. But even with a perpetual easement, they would have they're gonna reserve the authority that if they widen the road or whatever it costs, and you have to move it at your cost.
But my question was, I think, is but we'd have to pay for the moving of it, but we would still have the right to go down that same road. It
You'd
just
have
have to be moved over.
You just have to
Yeah.
move over.
So
You'd
we
have to
wouldn't
move
lose
over.
our easement, we'd just have to move it.
You'd have to move it. You'd have to move it. And the only other thing I would say though too is you potentially, you know, it depends on how much they were to widen the road. You know, if they make it really wide, then you could be looking at having to negotiate with the landowner.
That would be the top.
You know,
Yeah, but
that would be,
it doesn't matter where, doesn't matter if we go that way, that way, that way, or that way.
It's gonna
We
be
could have that
It's
issue.
gonna be that problem.
you're
What's
gonna
that?
have that
That,
issue.
no matter where.
No matter which way you go, you could have that problem.
Yeah.
Well, if you go just, like here's the road, if you just go underneath it like this and go on the other side, it's different than going down 3-4 miles lengthways.
It doesn't matter which way we go, we could have that issue. You're not gonna go underneath the road with anything,
No, I doubt that would happen.
ever.
That's a lot bigger problem, because they tried to do that with the project over there by Springfield. And, that's where you see the state digging in. Now, am I gonna tell you that it's impossible? I mean, I've been doing this for 43 years, every time I think something's impossible, I get surprised. So I won't tell you that, but I will just tell you that becomes a bigger issue for them, because the state really wants you out of their hair. You know, about the least what they'll do is they will deal with you on a ditch, because they've already had to deal with other utilities on a ditch. Going under a deal, that's been a bigger deal. Unless it's at an intersection or something like that, maybe they might. But even then, I think they're gonna do everything they can to make you not
But
believe it.
at the last meeting, I told you that I did have a person that was willing to put it on his ground in Knox County, which would help us out a little bit better. We don't have to fight the counties over there.
Right.
And I don't know if this is gonna keep going. I don't know, I wanna stick some money in out here, and all of a sudden we come into a snag where we got some property someplace else that he, you know,
Well, I think that, I will just tell you from what little I know about the whole project, because I've only been asked to do certain things, okay?
Yep.
And that is, I mean, James is absolutely right from the standpoint, if you're gonna need an easement, it don't make any difference which way you go, you're gonna run into the same general issues. You know, the thing with the thing that you have, that I'm concerned with is from a legal standpoint, is you've got these timelines, okay? I don't know enough about I don't know anything about the property that you're talking about, and I really don't know anything much about the property that you've looked at. it seems to me the question then becomes is, you know, your engineers, what is the soil, the proper soil, you know, all these drillings that they're doing, you know, is that a proper piece of property that you can get at? Will that impact your timing here? To me, those are the really the couple of things, and so if you're gonna be looking at a piece of property other than what they're already looking at, you need to get somebody to be looking at the property itself and say, you know, is this the right kind of soil? Can you do this? Can you do that?
So you would think it'd be wise to on the other piece of property that Larry's talking about?
Well, yeah, I would say this, what little I've been involved in this, what your city has had an issue is, where can we go?
Yep, 100%.
And you get limited options. And so I don't think, and this is my opinion, I don't think you wanna reject that one and say, well, I hope that this one does, unless you have the drillings, the soil things, where you literally have an option. You know, right now, what I understand, the only thing that's a problem with this one out here is access. That's all I know, is access. And there, you know, it's certainly a lot easier to get access probably from Knox County if you have to go than having to deal with the people in Cedar County who see no advantage to them whatsoever of giving you a deal or working with you. Now, Knox County is gonna say, you know, yeah, we're all here together. What I don't know, what you don't know, and nobody knows, is that land, is there enough land there? Is the ground such where it works? Because if it does, then that gives you two options, and then you can kind of go from there. And so that's kind of where, you know, you're
Yeah,
at,
so
you don't know.
we have, the engineers have to know where it is to see if it's,
If we go west though, we have to go under a state highway, right?
121.
121, which is a state highway, right?
I don't know if they consider that
sure, it's a
It's a
highway.
state highway.
but like you said, you go in an intersection, you might have a little more.
Well,
But
it
before
just-
you figure your route out there and worry about it, let the engineers see if the land is appropriate, how much land is there?
There's enough land there, Cheryl. I'll tell you who it is. And I promised him I would not spread it around town, so I hope everybody at this room doesn't
Well,
spread.
you're on
it.
video.
Well, you're on video and that's, so we better not
We're
say
gonna talk
it.
about prices and things and potentially land boring, we need.
We're gonna talk about land
Executive session.
purchasing, you need to do that in executive session. If you're gonna make a bid, but at this point, I don't know that you're, you know,
We're
that.
not to that position yet.
You know,
We're not
I mean,
even
I
on
think
state.
you have to figure out, ask your engineer if that's a relevant piece of property to do his soil testing.
What the engineers did was do a Google search around for, their equipment that says, this would probably be appropriate, this would probably be appropriate. We looked at all kinds of stuff. If you've got a piece of land, if you don't wanna give names and what all that, I understand that, then call the engineer and say, Google this land, see if there's an appropriate place. We looked at, for example, Beth Miller's was more than willing, but there wasn't enough there, because part of it was on such an incline that it would have been prohibitive.
This property is in the target, it's in one of the circled boxes, that were originally part of.
Well,
Then get it to the, if you don't wanna tell us, fine.
They'll know
Tell
the soil
engineer.
types and.
It's in,
whether-
it's in a written box from earlier.
Well, I think you should zero in on that and have them take a look at that. And you can call them, or I can call them, or whoever kind of.
I'd rather have it come from you.
Okay.
Because you got more,
I don't think there's any hindrance.
a lawyer has more clout than anybody else, okay?
Well,
He
my wife
entrusted
has more
me, and
clout.
he said he wants to deal with me, and I said, listen, I can't do this alone, I have to have a lawyer involved. He said, that's fine.
Well-
But he don't want everybody going out telling him this and telling him that. He just said, you talk to me, get a lawyer involved, and that's where I'm at right now.
Sure. Well, I think it's appropriate to find out if there's enough land, whether or not the soil type is appropriate. Then you can make your next step. All I'm telling you is that, you know, then you're gonna have something you compare apples to oranges, okay? You know, because you're gonna have, you know, whether you go this way, you're gonna have an issue with the state and Cedar County, If you go that way, you're gonna have an issue potentially with the state, whether you have to bore underneath it or some other way to get there. And then you have to, figure it out. The bigger thing that you have to be concerned about is the time thing.
Right.
Now, does that mean that you can't get another modification? I'm not saying that you can't, but what they wanna do is they wanna see progress.
Yep.
They wanna see something's moving so they can then say, this is where we're at. And they understand the fact that when you're doing stuff with land, particularly with lagoon and things, this isn't like any other deal. I mean, you've got so many other factors that are involved in this, and people who have opinions on it and everything else. And, so they get that, and as well as this, I mean, my God, have you been in Hy-Vee lately? They're empty shelves.
Crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy, there's empty shelves, you go, people know that there are issues also with supplies, and this and that. So there's a little bit of that understanding of it, but they're gonna require you to keep plugging on, so, us
I
contacting
think
this
we'd have
guy.
less stumbling blocks this way than if we went that way. Because you're dealing with the county and possibly the landowners, we don't know.
And that would be
We
something
don't
we
have
have
a
to
problem
find
with the
out.
landowners over there, we need to get the landowners, or if that was in one of the circles, why haven't we?
It's in the red, it was in a red box. So what we really need to make progress here is to give a motion to let you offer them the same amount of money to bore the holes like you did to the others. So we can
Well,
vote.
I think what
You don't bore
we
the
wanna
holes
do
to get
this.
the land security.
You'd wanna, I would think, and I'm open to Pat, maybe even to tell me or whomever, first of all, you would wanna contact the engineers. This is the property. From their computerized as far as soil types, they know all that stuff. Is there enough land? Does it appear that the soil type would be, would be a good deal? If he then says yes, okay, then I think you're looking at having borings done at that point to know where that's at. Because if 1 and 2 don't work, you don't have to worry about boring, and you wouldn't be spending any money in order to do that. And so that's how I would look at it, that you do that. Then if that is, then I think you do the borings, then you know where you got something, but in the meantime, we'd have to be contacting the state to say, is this something we could do if we went that way? What issues are we gonna have as far as access to that piece of property? Because they could just tell you, no, even if the property is enough land and this and that, then you know where you're at, but you don't wanna be giving up on something where, that may not be your first choice, but it may be your only choice depending on what we find out from them. But that, I would think that, Miller could tell you that, so you'd know by the next meeting whether or not that's a possibility and whether that's an
All you
option.
gotta do is give them a location.
Yeah, but do it, and then in the next meeting, you could then be looking at, Pat, I keep ignoring you, and I'm not trying to.
Well, no, that's okay. I mean, you're saying valid things, and I just wanna reemphasize to the board, because I've talked to my inspector, and I wanna really emphasize what Mike has said twice tonight. We need to continue to make progress. We've gotten 2 extensions. I mean, we're already past one due date to be done, and the next one, the last time the last schedule was put in place, the state came back and asked us, are you sure you can complete this by this date? Because they don't wanna keep doing this. And right now, we need to be turnkey in that lagoon by September 2023. So every time we find another site, we gotta do more core samples, we gotta do this, it's more months. I mean, we had the core samples done in January, and we didn't get the results till recently. So if that were to happen again, we're looking at having this conversation again at Thanksgiving. And then we're less than a year from needing to be done. How many times, like Mike said, is the state gonna let us extend this? That's up to the state. So
And I want,
progress is what we need to make. I call the inspector and let him know every once in a while, this is what we're working on. He knows we're working on access up to county, and that Mike's trying to get this easement through. So to back, I'm gonna just caution you, we're far enough along on this one, if this were to work, we could still meet our construction date, and that's from Reed's mouth himself. If he were to have to start over, my guess is he would caution us because our schedule is getting really tight as
But
is.
we need a second option if the first one does not work.
Right, he wouldn't expect us to be ignorant and not explore other options.
But
That's
as of right now, the only thing holding us up is the line.
access. Access is
But
a
that's being worked
holdup.
on right now, so.
Right, with
Right.
no guarantee to it, with no guarantee to it.
Well,
You'd be silly not to
Right.
look at
Well,
going
sure.
on, because you don't wanna go down the road somewhere and say, I wish I had done this.
6 months from
But,
now.
and I'm just,
I would want them to look, at one time when we talked to Reed and Chris both, they said nothing looks real good west because of the sand in the hills. Now, if you found a place that has that, you know, other whatever, then I urge you to get that named and that
You and
location.
I can talk tomorrow. And I guess.
It's hard to get hold of this man. I
But
have
you might
numbers
just say
all
this.
over for him, and I found him, and I talked to him twice already.
Yeah, but you and I can talk where you
Yes,
get
we
an idea
can.
where we're at, and we know.
I would like to see,
Why can't we get the,
engineer fill us in a little bit better than what we have been.
About what?
I'd like to see a letter with his letterhead on, telling me exactly what we find, because we, as a board, I haven't seen anything, just but hearsay of everybody telling us what's going on. I wanna see a letterhead from the company, what they have found, where they're at, I don't see none of that.
Now Miller is where located, right?
I don't see none of that.
Is there any reason why you couldn't, some of you need to have a Zoom meeting with him so you could ask, you all could ask him questions?
sure, he's been here.
Well, I know, but I.
Well, at the beginning,
He was,
Because you have some questions about also,
Haven't seen him in a year.
you know, you have some questions
He was
about
out here.
upkeep, right? And you
Oh,
need
that's
to know
good.
that
I
answer to
saw him
that.
last.
You know, I think
he told me he wants a few things, and I said, I can't promise you anything right now until, he says, I said, the lawyer and I would probably come out, talk to you, and we'd go from there.
yeah, well, we gotta figure out if the land's acceptable, if there's
Yeah,
enough
I
there.
understand that.
And then
He
we
knows
can
that
try-
too.
Yeah,
He knows that too, and there's plenty of ground.
well, we'll get right on it.
typically, they have to have an option before you can do the test.
Well, they'll need to, no, we can give them an option if that's the deal, if there's enough land and there's the land kind of a deal.
That's what I mean, that first step is to find out if there's enough and if it's plausible.
But then we have to do.
Then you
it
get
like
the
this.
option to go do the test.
Sure, that would be well,
And
money
buying.
worth, yeah.
Buying has to be in that option, because otherwise we're just spending money to test that if he's gonna
Yeah.
back out of the deal.
But Mr. Pites and I, he can call me tomorrow, we can figure out where the land is located, get a hold of the engineer and ask
And my
him.
schedule ain't that full tomorrow, I can come over and see if he has some time.
Well, at 8:30 I have to get my hair cut because my daughter's getting
I
married.
got mine too.
Your daughter getting married?
On Memorial Day weekend.
Oh, so you
And
got
she
mom.
told me that my hair
What
was
does
too.
mom tell you, that you gotta cut it shorter?
Yeah.
I haven't had time, I haven't had that time in my schedule, right?
We're living back in the sixties, Mike.
I would like to, this is not on the schedule, and I don't know if I can do that, but I did give you an estimate. We probably can't discuss anything, because this just happened, but our storm happened, and, the adjuster was out today, just so you know that, and as you see, the cleanup has already started. So, if you have any, if you know of anything, if you know of any damage anywhere, that the city would be responsible. I think Ryan has driven it, the adjuster and I drove it today, the places we thought might have, and the guys drove it immediately that night and stuff, so, my understanding as far as the trees are concerned is that if it came down or has to come down because of damage, then they will help pay for that cleanup. We know that Ryan said that the gazebo and the bathroom both have enough damage that, you know, we need to be looking at new roofs, because get it all in on one claim, so we got 1,000 deductible, so that's not bad.
It's gotta be on city property though, or?
Yeah, yeah. So, And we got the guy to come out and concentrate on those, the kids, grade school has a activity here. There's some loose limbs in that tree right over the playground, which we're concerned about. He's gonna, they're just hanging up in that tree. And, we have no way to get to them. We need the bucket truck is the key. And, so I've talked with Mr. Rogge, and he's aware, and they're keeping the kids away from that area and stuff with the grade school kids coming in, so. I think we're moving along on that, okay? So
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second it.
motion by James, second by John,
Yes.
James,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
and Larry.
Yep.